I'd really like to talk about his approach on 15. I know, but listen, Ty Chandler is the best guy in that backfield.
He's looked explosive in the preseason so far. Can he deliver an encore?
I was just trying to see if Justin Watson can make the cut here, but
Justin
Thomas.
Watson's a receiver.
I was trying Justin.
Who the one on the drink? Palmer.
Arnold Palmer.
I like them drink.
I like that you know him for the drink.
But them things be hitting, boy. Them things. That lemonade tea joint.
Sometimes I like the drink as well.
I'm like, I don't know who. I was like, man, he must go off good with the drink. This tasting this good.
Fantasy Football Pregame with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Hey, yo, we ain't got to tell you what this is. No. We ain't got to tell you what's at stake. This right here, this is why you lift all those weights. This is why you run all those hills. This is why you subscribe to Fantasy Life. This is why you read Love Hate. This is why you follow Lawrence Jackson, Jay Croucher, and of course, the talented Mr. Roto, Matthew Berry. This is what it's all about. You are playing for this today.
That's what we're playing for.
Well, that's what some of us are playing for. Let's be honest with ourselves. Not everybody's playing.
Let's not put it in Lawrence.
Hey, look.
Hey, that goes for me too.
I am playing for that.
In another league.
Just not this league.
Right.
Other than that, fantasy life's great. You know. Put it in the middle, so we all get a little of that fantasy football victory dust.
Hey, look, maybe you're playing to get your entry fee back. Whatever you're playing for, it is week 17. It all comes down to this.
Yeah.
Welcome to Fantasy Football Pregame. We want you guys to make decisions that you can live with all off season. So please let us help you. Hit the hashtag FFPregame on X, obviously YouTube. We will answer as many of your comments, your questions as humanly possible in this Championship Sunday show. Happy New Year. Matthew, kick us off with your top storyline. It's really the storyline of the season, right?
Well, I mean, honestly, like the fact of the matter is that like my storyline was different. So we go through the storylines yesterday, and then overnight the news comes out that Raheem Mostert, who leads the NFL in touchdown, Raheem Mostert, Raheem must start, Raheem the Dream, Raheem friend of the podcast, friend of the show, Raheem Mostert, Raheem Mostert. I'm in 5 finals today. He's on every single one of them.
Oh wow.
He is out, including our show league. I against stupid Deb, Justice for Kickers.
You have CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown on that team.
Yes.
You kind of complain about
it. I had him on.
That game's over.
I had him on Raw, David
60-point head start.
and CeeDee Lamb. I'm off to a good start. I'm wearing my University of Alabama sweatshirt today in honor of CeeDee Lamb. And I know what you're saying. Wait. CeeDee Lamb didn't go to Alabama. He didn't. He went to Oklahoma State. But
he didn't go to Oklahoma State either.
Right, he went to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Sorry, he went to Oklahoma with Baker.
Right.
Sorry, he went to Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield. But if you look in his eyes, he wants to be at Alabama. He's the kind of player. He was on the field last night with Jahmyr Gibbs and James Williams, who went to Alabama. Like,
that what you
he
saw?
played. Yeah, that's what I saw.
Okay.
And I saw a guy in CeeDee Lamb that said, you know what, I'm part of a champion. I'm going to lead teams to championships the way that Alabama
This is a massive reach.
It's a massive reach.
It's
a massive
reach. That was a hell of a storyline.
Found a way.
Also,
that was a hell of a storyline.
Bama's playing for the title next
All right, so
yesterday.
just to recap.
Anyway,
your top storyline is Raheem Mostert's out.
Yeah, you guys got me off track earlier today. All right.
We got you
No,
off track.
my top storyline here, get back to actual fantasy football that we care about, is not only Raheem Mostert out, but just obviously all the injuries, right? Jamar Chase is legitimately a game-time decision as well. And I believe, so there are 28 teams playing today, right? So 4 have already played. Out of the 28 teams, I believe 13 or 14, depending on, what happens with one game. 13 or 14 of them, depending on, I guess, with Howell versus Brissett.
Sounds like it's going to be Howell.
It sounds like it's going to be Howell.
Yep.
So if it's Howell, it's going to be 13 quarterbacks that didn't start the season as their starting team's quarterback will start today.
Right.
We've got we've got Mason Rudolph and Jake Browning and Jaren Hall tonight on NBC. I mean, like, it just on and on. Can you trust your guys, Aiden O'Connell and Jarrett Stidham makes his debut, Michael.
Yeah.
And so that, fantasy titles on the line, you have all these guys going. Taylor Heineke is playing for the Falcons.
60 quarterbacks, I believe, have started this season a game. You're going to either win with a backup quarterback in spite of a backup quarterback or because of a backup quarterback. So super desperate in my dynasty super flex final.
Phelps.
Jared
His
Stidham.
super Phelps final.
Oh,
Super desperate.
Yeah, you got it correct.
Jared Stidham or Jaren Hall.
Right. Well, that's the kind of league that you play Jaren Hall or Jared Stidham in is a Super Phelps league. I'm going to go on. I'm going to tell you right now what you're going to do. Rye Weezy, which I dig. There you go. Rye.
Let's do that again.
That's his. Well, that's Rye Weezy's avatar there. His emoji. Jaren Hall. I think the answer is Jaren Hall, and I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's all that close. So I am actually starting Jaren Hall because I stupidly benched Joe Flacco. Well, if I'd known Jacoby Brissett was hurt, I would have started Joe Flacco. But hurt on the road against the number one. I'm sorry, not on the road, but playing against the number one pass defense in the NFL without Amari Cooper, I got super nervous.
Yeah,
and
that's understandable.
I thought what happened in the second half to Flacco was going to happen the entire game, not that he'd already banked 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah. But I'll tell you this about Jaren Hall. If you look at that first game, we got a very small glimpse of Jaren Hall. 6 of 7 for 78 yards, I believe, on that first drive before he got hurt. It's a fantasy-friendly offense. The Packers' defense has been bad. No Jair Alexander tonight. They want to win. The Vikings are still alive in the playoffs. They are making this change not because let's see what we got, like what Sean Payton's doing with Russell Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. They think they've got it. They think Jaren Hall gives them the best chance to win. Now, whether that's true or not, we'll find out tonight. But they think Jaren Hall has the best chance to win. It's a fantasy-friendly offense. And then you think about Stidham, no Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy's banged up, Marvin Mims is banged up. And Lawrence, you and I have talked about Jaren Hall before when that happened. I know you like him too.
Right, yeah. In this game here, it's just as simple as this sometimes. Jaren Hall will be throwing to Justin Jefferson. There's nobody on that Broncos offense that's even close to that caliber. Jordan Addison is still up in the air, but even with KJ Osborne, like you said, Matthew, it's a fantasy-friendly offense. Ty Chandler's gotten going, and I think it'll be a back and forth. The Vikings, the last time I checked, are 1-point favorites in this game.
He's
Athletic
also more
quarterback.
mobile.
I was just about to say, Russian floor.
Definitely.
He just got to protect himself better than he did against Atlanta.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just
but
one
he
thing
can
as well on Jaren Hall, I don't think people realize is that in college he chucked the deep a ton. Like he's not a dink and
Who was
dunk
his
guy.
wide receiver that he put in the NFL in college? Guy named Puka
Nacua.
Nacua. Like somebody was throwing it to Puka when Puka was going off at BYU,
Yep,
right?
Exactly. Yes. So just the fact that he's going to be throwing deep against a suspect defense with Justin Jefferson, looks like Jordan Addison probably is trending towards playing. I think it's a good matchup.
All right. Jay, keep the ball. What's your storyline?
Philadelphia Eagles, one of the most blah teams right now. It just hasn't happened for them after they hit that high water mark when they were 10-1, 1 seed, beating the Bills, beating the Chiefs, they beat the Cowboys. Now all of a sudden this offense has just been stuck in mud for so long. And I think the big thing with the Eagles and their offense is that they just don't blow teams out anymore. They don't blow anyone out. Last year they blowed everyone out. This year their only real blowout win was when they beat the Bucs by 14. And that was like back in week 3. They beat the Dolphins by 14, but that was a close game. And so in a game where now they are almost 2 touchdown favorites against the Cardinals, do they get back into that just DeAndre Swift, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, the games that you really expected him to have and this offense to have throughout the year? I think that they will be closer to that than they have been, and Swift had 20 carries last week. Yeah. So I think he goes over his 71.5 rushing yard prop, but it's a very strange offense at the moment. I think he'll get some answers today.
Yeah, they need some positivity. They need to get their mojo back. Lawrence, what you got? Before you
we got a question.
Let's pick 2 from A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Travis Etienne, and the aforementioned DeAndre Swift. Got these 4 to choose from for his 2 flex positions and can't decide. Any help is gratefully received. That's what we're here for.
First off, again, I don't think he can screw this up. I don't know how you're benching A.J. Brown against Arizona.
You got to have AJ in. He's locked in.
Yeah, I would rule out Etienne. I'm nervous about with what that offense looks like under C.J. Stroud.
All right, we'll get to that.
Right?
For sure.
I mean, we're going to talk about that as well. I get the workload there as well.
Yeah, Beathard, right.
Right, and I'm sorry,
C.J.
Beathard.
That'd be awesome.
C.J. Stroud, sorry.
It's all good.
I got
man.
my C.J.'s mixed up. Yeah, C.J. Beathard. Yeah. I'm nervous about what that offense looks like under C.J. Beathard as well. I get that it's a good matchup against Carolina, and they might lean on Etienne more, but I think it's the receivers. DeAndre Swift should have a monster game. I will say this. It's Arizona, and he should have a monster game. The only concern with DeAndre Swift is, again, there's a chance that Hurts vultures 3 touchdowns.
Yep. Don't steal my thunder.
But it is a chance.
I'm gonna go with the wide receivers there. I'm assuming
AJ
it's
Puka?
PPR. I'm gonna go with AJ and Puka.
I'm a little nervous about Puka just because he was dealing with the injuries coming in. And just one little niche thing, this doesn't matter a ton, but the Giants obviously under Wink, they blitz as much as anyone outside of Brian Flores in Minnesota. And against the blitz, Matthew Stafford goes to Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is the guy most targeted against the blitz. So that's just a little small thing. Don't think it moves the needle a ton.
that.
I don't mind ETN. I mean,
Yeah.
again,
I like
it is Carolina. They are 18th against the run over the last 4 weeks, and again with CJ Beathard under center, it may be volume heavy. Like if you want to go, like I think we all agree on AJ Brown.
It's not like he's got the deepest receiver core to chuck it to.
Yeah.
It's not a bad call.
I'm going to say it's AJ Brown, and then I think it's a coin flip between ETN and Puka.
Okay.
That's what I would say there. Personally, I think Puka has a big game.
All right.
But I also ETN would be fine. So anyway.
Like you said, first world problem.
Yeah.
Lawrence, what you got?
Yeah, I don't think you can screw that up. Actually, all four should go off, Jack.
Since we've been in the fantasy playoffs this year, y'all know who the top quarterback has been?
Who that?
It's Baker Mayfield. And my storyline is I want to know if will he continue today to be the best quarterback in the fantasy playoffs here going up against this Saints defense that's a middle of the road overall defense, top 10 pass defense, but they'll be without Marshawn Lattimore. Baker Mayfield's 8 touchdowns, 0 picks in his last 3 games. So it'll be interesting to see, can he cap this off? They've catapulted to being the best team in the NFC South. That's become more consistent now. We was trying to figure that out for a while. And if they could put the Saints out of commission, the Saints are still fighting for their playoff lives. So if Baker could lead this team to put these Saints out of commission, will be my biggest question about that.
Baker Mayfield, who played college with CeeDee Lamb.
At Alabama.
At Alabama.
He wanted to go to
Last
Alabama.
night on the field, wished he could say "Roll Tide." He rolled like a member of Alabama.
So we're going to take this question. I got a question for you.
It's a long way to go.
All right.
So, yes, sir. What do we
First,
got?
Stafford or Baker, also Zay Flowers, Rashid Shaheed, OBJ, or Drake London.
All right, let's start with the So is it only one? I mean, if it's only one, it's Zay Flowers. That's the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's only one, if it's two receivers, I actually think it's Zay Flowers and Shaheed. Shaheed actually had a full-time role last week. If you look at the route participation on the Saints, they finally upgraded Rashid Shaheed to like a full-time role. Played over 70% of the snaps. He ran a route on I think 85%, something like that, of the routes. Great route participation for Shaheed, but Zay Flowers is the answer there. And then I'll just tell you, like, I mean, I don't think you can screw this up. I have Stafford at 7. I have Baker at 10. But Stafford's playing so well, against the Giants. I'm going to go with Stafford here. But again, both guys are top 10 options. I agree with Lawrence. Good for Baker Mayfield, by the way. Just that's. For all the, I was just going to say, everyone's talking about DeMar Hamlin and, some of the other, and Joe Flacco comeback player of the year. Like, no one's talking. Baker Mayfield is a guy that was like, I don't want to say he was close out of football. But
No,
it was a guy
it was like, will he be a career
close
backup?
to being a definitely backup.
Well,
definite
and even
backup.
coming into the season, he'll just be a stopgap until they find a guy. Like,
Right.
now he probably
Can
got
he
a
beat out
franchise
Kyle
set.
Trask?
Kyle
Yes.
Trask was a competition. What I love the most about it,
and he's going to lead him to a division title.
I love the most about it. There was a lot of speculation in the preseason of whether or not Baker Mayfield could be this year's Geno Smith.
Yes, sir.
Given the situation that he landed in.
He's been
And
better.
he delivered.
Yeah, he's been better.
Love
And
that.
Here's the thing with comeback player of the year too. Like, DeMar Hamlin is his own thing, and if people want to vote for DeMar Hamlin, I think that's completely fine and justified, and I think he will probably win the award. But right now at the odds, Joe Flacco is plus 100, and Baker Mayfield is 10-1. That makes no sense whatsoever. Flacco has played 5 games. Mayfield has played the whole season, and he's been better than Flacco. Flacco's thrown 8 interceptions in 5 games. Like, Flacco's an amazing story. Baker's been better at football, and he's been there the whole season, and I think he's got a better comeback story.
Yeah.
He does.
Yep.
He does. I mean, off the shelf, like off the couch to, lead your team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And by the way, after he called the Jets and said, when Rodgers went down, he called the Jets and says, hey, I'll come back. I'll be a backup. I'll help out. And they're like, nah.
know.
And then he just puts the nail in the coffin.
It's not like the Browns wanted to call him either, right? They went through
No.
DTR first. P.J. Walker.
When
And
they
this came
brought him
out-
in, it was just like, let's just get a vet in and round out the quarterback room. He wasn't even supposed to
By
start.
the way, this gives me an opportunity to crap on the Commanders, which I always like to do. By the way, the Browns, this just came out. I missed this last week, but I tweeted it yesterday. They called about Jacoby Brissett. They called and said, can we trade for Jacoby Brissett? And at that point, the Commanders were committed to Sam Howell. And Jacoby Brissett's just going to be a backup. And hey, here's a team that's got legit playoff aspirations and
had him
potential.
last year,
Had him last year. He knows the offense.
Yeah.
And Ron Rivera's like, no, I'm not letting go of that guy. Yeah. And that's just like first off, it's stupid. Why would you not trade a backup quarter? You know your team's not going anywhere, and he's not your starter, right? So first
People
off,
love Onk, though.
Get some.
They love Onk. Like,
I get it. No, he's a locker room guy.
You
People
know?
love, but I understand. But I'm just. Like, first off, get something for the team. It's a dumb move for the franchise. And by the way, it's bad karma. Like, the guy's a good guy. Everyone likes Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Everyone likes Jacoby Brissett. Let the guy go compete for a title with his former team.
Matthew, I know
as
you're
opposed to
speaking-
sit behind Sam Howell on a crappy Commanders team that's going nowhere.
Your objective analysis.
He wanted them losses
No,
for
your
Commanders.
objective analysis is good, but I blame you at this point for just supporting that team. Speaking
I
of,
don't blame you. That's fair.
like, why are you doing that to yourself? But speaking of, okay, so that's what I want to get to.
Yes, sir.
And I should know this about you all the years I've known you.
Yes.
How exactly did a Texas A&M guy be such a Bama fan?
Well, two reasons, number one.
Okay.
First off, my 18-year-old son, is a freshman at Alabama. So, roll tide.
Sure.
And Texas A&M is, let me give my notes here. They're not good. They're not good. They're not good.
You sure about it?
They're paying $90 million to a coach who's not good.
Okay.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that the $6 billion we had to pay Dan Snyder to go away? No, it is not.
Commanders chat.
Yes.
Okay.
I can make anything about the Commanders. This is my
So
this
when
is
it
my
comes
magic.
to teams, I think you got
No.
it tight.
No.
He seems to, right?
You notice that.
You just like pain.
Like
you know?
dysfunction.
He's an
Yeah.
Angels
you-
fan as well,
you
which
understand,
goes under the radar.
Yes, this is also
Los
true.
Angeles Angels fan, randomly.
Shohei Ohtani. We also
Oh, my God,
it's much
dude.
pain. I surround myself
long
with
live
pain.
Sean
Fantasy
Payton.
over reality for sure.
Well, also, by the way, this is my fantasy team right here. So just so you know,
Oh, wow.
it's all happening. To answer your question, though,
Yes, sir,
when
of course,
A&M
yeah.
and Alabama play, I root for A&M. Just to be
Yeah.
very clear,
Yeah.
I grew up in College Station. My dad still is a professor at Texas A&M. Gig 'em Aggies.
But this is a new
But
thing. This is just from your son.
This is
Okay.
once my son
Because you
enrolled,
repping like you've been down since Gene Stallings or something.
No,
like you just
I've been down since August.
trolling Maria
2023.
Taylor.
You've been down
Yeah,
since
yeah,
Jalen
yeah.
Milroe.
Right. It's
Since
Jalen
Jalen
Milroe.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Last and least.
And I wavered in the South Florida game. So, yeah.
I trust Milroe.
Yeah.
I trust him.
Last and least, my storyline.
Yes, sir.
Brock Purdy may have lost the MVP. It may have lost a lot of your semifinal game. But if you survived it, he could win a lot of championships today
I agree.
against those Commanders for all the reasons you just laid out. And we're going to get more into that when we get into shot for shot. We're going to have some fun with that game. But without further ado, first, here's
Okay.
Deebo Samuel, dressed in his Sunday best, repping for his quarterback.
Right.
Friend of the
exactly.
show.
That's my quarterback.
2 touchdowns coming for Debo. Look
Minimum.
at that.
Minimum. Probably one on the ground, 2 in
this-
addition as well.
Listen, when
Nice shoes.
I feel like I'm not getting enough love on the show and not getting enough questions, I rock a Dynasty Exchange sweatshirt. I walk in here with Michael's
Shout
Dynasty
out.
Exchange
Shout out.
sweatshirt, and I'm
Appreciate
like,
you.
oh, Michael, get me some love, and Debo's no dummy.
Well,
Yeah.
this is gonna be fun for
Did you
everybody.
say,
that
it said
doesn't
MVP on the
listen.
back. Did you see that? Yeah, it
I
did.
like that.
It said 13 MVP.
Probably got to take that off. Maybe made that like 2 weeks ago, though.
Look
That's
how
right.
angry Lawrence is in the
Well,
animation.
speaking of which,
I'm really mad.
I've delayed this long enough as we get into burning questions. Our first one is going to be from the Dolphins and Ravens game. I need for Lawrence to stand up and let the people get a real good shot of this shirt.
Well,
if you know, you know.
We've you listen. The term quarterbacky. Apparently, Lamar Jackson ain't quarterbacky enough. But the good thing is today he get a chance to show that he is quarterbacky enough. If him and the Ravens win this game, he will pretty much lock up that MVP. In this shirt at the bottom will go from WTF to MVP. Let's go, Mr. Quarterbacky.
Well played. I'm usually not envious of T-shirts, but today I am, my friend. Lamar Jackson is Matthew Berry's QB2. But Matthew, let's focus on the Miami side of things because we knew Jalen Waddle was going to miss this game.
Yeah.
And as you talked about off the top, now no Raheem Mostert. Who steps up?
I think the obvious answer here is Devon Achane. You'll see some Jeff Wilson Jr. here. I got in a lot of
Where
questions.
did he go to school? Devon Achane.
Don, Texas A&M, King Maggies. Thank you very much.
Something great came out of there.
Yeah, that's right. I thought you were going to ask me Jeff Wilson Jr. and the answers. I don't know the answer. I don't know. I don't know where Jeff Wilson Jr. went to college. But
in Australia.
I do. Well,
It's in
Australia. There you go.
Yeah.
Big.
Monash University.
Very Brisbane.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I will say here is I've gotten a lot of questions on Twitter X about Jeff Wilson Jr. Is he a viable flex? And the answer is like sort of maybe. To me, it's a championship game, and we're already dealing with enough uncertainty. Jeff Wilson Jr. could get 12 carries and 2 touchdowns on the Dolphins. He could also get 3. Like we haven't seen it all year long, and to start a guy like that, I think there are better flex desperation plays that you feel better about than Jeff Wilson Jr. today. Again, he could go off, but Baltimore is so good against the run. I do think Devon Achane, though, as you saw it there, he's a top 12 running back for me. He's seen 12 touches this season in a bunch of different games. In every game in which he's seen at least 12 touches, he's averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. Double-digit target share in 3 of the past 4, which is good because, again, Baltimore's so good against the run, but you can get them on the corners. You can get them with the speed. And you think about that one game without Jalen Waddle this season, Devon Achane scored 51 fantasy points. That was week 3. I'm not expecting that. I'm not predicting a massive game from Devon Achane, but he should get a ton of work against this Ravens defense as well. Again, Ravens, 7th fewest fantasy points allowed to running backs. It's not a good matchup, but the talent of Achane, his involvement in the passing game, no Jalen Waddle, I think he's a high-end RB2 today.
I think he's due for an explosive receiving game. It's just like he's been on the cusp of that, right?
He had that ball against Tennessee where it was going to be like an 80-yard touchdown, and it was just out in front of him. They just weren't on the same page. But I agree with Achane in the receiving game. Also, it's just come out that there is no sign of Kyle Hamilton on the field right now. That is a massive deal.
Massive loss.
You could argue Roquan Smith. He's arguably the best player on that defense. Brandon Stevens at corner, he's also in some doubt. So I think the answer, honestly, it's Tyreek Hill. And I know that's kind of boring from a fantasy perspective, but he's going to get peppered. Cedric Wilson, I think, has some interest as well, just given he's going to be the secondary receiver for that offense, which has been just about the best offense in football.
Yeah, speaking of Cedric Wilson, I just got an interesting question. Because he's played 55% of the snaps in the last 4 games, so you got Waddle out, right? You got Raheem Mostert. So here you have Jeff Wilson and Cedric Wilson. If it came down to it, who would y'all play out of those 2 guys in the flex spot, let's say?
I would go Jeff. I love Achane. I hear everything and agree with everything you're saying. But what has been alarming in the last couple of weeks from the Achane perspective, I haven't been Dynasty, so I've been paying particularly close attention to it, is Jeff Wilson playing seemingly in spots over Achane. I'm not sure what the exact rotation is, but there are spots where I'm like, well, why is Jeff Wilson in there right now? Why is that not Achane? So it feels like Jeff Wilson, Mike McDaniel trusts him.
He's correct, and he's getting some of the short yardage work. It hasn't been a ton, but he has some of the, again, it's all small sample size here, but he's gotten some short yardage work. So there's a chance he's, quote unquote, their goal line back. Like, again, with stuff like this, you'd always say, well, who's got the best shot at a touchdown? And Jeff Wilson Jr. has the best shot at a touchdown today. Doesn't mean that Cedric Wilson couldn't get in there, but I will tell you, I think there are some other sneaky wide receiver starts that we get into it at some other point of the show. Oh my goodness. Okay, Anthony Piscetto.
He's been following since the 06-010 days.
There we go.
In the finals again this year. Always appreciate the advice.
Let's
Opponent
go.
has Rashad White, Christian McCaffrey, and A.J. Brown. Already had Brees go and has Tyreek, Rice, and Moore.
Okay.
1 running back, Pacheco, White, or Achane.
I think those are all pretty good. I'm going to go with Pacheco. I think here's where I have them all, right? So I have Zamir White at 15. I have Pacheco at Pacheco at 8. I was going to say I thought I'm at 9. Okay, so I have Pacheco at 8. I have Zamir White at 15, and I have Achane at 12, as you know. So I'm going to go with Pacheco. Just that defense of Cincinnati is so banged up. There are reports that have come out that they quote unquote want to simplify the offense. And so I think that means Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, and Isaiah Pacheco.
Yes.
And that's it. I mean, I'll tell you, in the show league that we're playing, I'm playing against stupid Dev, who and, yeah, exactly, 1,000%. He stole a bunch of tight ends from me. He's stupid Dev. Anyway,
He's playing to win.
Yeah. Anyway, so no. Dev is starting Isaiah Pacheco against me, so he's going to go off as well. I just feel like he's gotten healthy as well. McKinnon's out. Who knows with Clyde Edwards-Helaire? He's expected to play, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't good. So I do think, again, given how beat up the Cincinnati Bengals defense is, I think Pacheco. The one thing I will say is if you're like, hey, I don't want to put all my eggs in the KC basket because you've already got Rashee Rice, then to me, Achane would be the next guy, and you have Tyreek. If you wanted to diversify, Zamir White would be the answer there to me because you obviously have Tyreek and you have Rice. And I do think Zamir White has a really nice game. I'm at 15. I think he's going to get a massive workload against the Colts, which is a really nice matchup. I don't think he could screw it up. All three guys are top 15 for me, but if you're asking me for one, I'm saying Pacheco. That's the guy I think has the best game there.
Yeah. Matthew, it's funny because normally we don't, we kind of couch terms. We don't say that someone's not good. The only three guys we definitively say are not good: Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Joshua Kelly, and Mike McCarthy.
Yes.
Those are three guys on the show.
Speaking of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm actually starting him today. I'm starting him and Pacheco in the same lineup.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm missing Jalen Waddle, so I'm like, well, one of these dudes got to get that rushing touchdown, and it's it's a league where you can't add anyone anymore, so it's
wow, okay.
I'm like, damn, here we go.
Same thing. I literally have Mostert in all 5 finals teams that I have, which is honestly he's one of the reasons why is you get that kind of production from a late round pick, and I'm in one league in that league I have Waddle and a Mostert, and so for a flex I'm putting in CEH. Because I already have Pacheco. Yeah. I'm like, I'm with you. I'm like, give me the Kansas City running back. But I do think Pacheco gets the majority of work today.
Let's stay with the Chiefs. Let's stay with the Chiefs then. Sounds like we like the Chiefs to get right against these Bengals today, Matthew.
Yeah, we really do. I mean, honestly, they've tried to simplify the offense as well. Over the last month, the Bengals are a bottom 10 scoring defense. They're beat up. They're not particularly good to begin with. And they're really beat up on that side of the ball as well. So I have Mahomes at QB5. I have Rashee Rice. I'll just talk about Rashee Rice here for a second because I think everyone that has Mahomes is probably starting him. You're hoping for better. But since week 12, he's the 8th best wide receiver in fantasy football, averaging over 18 fantasy points per game. He's got a 25% target share in that stretch. Bengals have allowed at least 2 touchdowns to opposing wide receivers now in back-to-back games. And again, this report about how they want to simplify the offense, you see Mahomes getting frustrated week after week about all these guys not doing their job. And the only guys that are doing their job, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, and Rashee Rice, who's a guy in the preseason that we liked because we talked about the fact that Mahomes went and carped for him to the front office and said, go draft me Rashee Rice. They worked out together in the summer, so their connection is longer than most quarterbacks with rookies.
Yep. A little contrarian, but I don't think they're going to get right because I don't think there's any hope for this passing offense at the moment. I think with the running game, they'll get right. It's a really good matchup. No G.J. Reader. For Cincinnati, I think Pacheco is going to eat. But the thing with Cincinnati, their defense is bad, but in what way is it bad? They give up explosive plays down the field. You know who doesn't get down the field? The Chiefs cannot get down the field. It's all behind the line of scrimmage. So I don't trust Mahomes in this matchup to have a massive day, but I do trust Pacheco, which is weird to say.
Full-point PPR, Zamir White, Zeke. Any consideration for benching Kelce or McBride for either of those players?
No. I mean, absolutely not. And I prefer Zamir White over Ezekiel Elliott. Not particularly close.
Yep.
Okay.
Real quickly on this, as long as we're talking about this game, because I want to talk about the other side of the ball. Jamar Chase is a game-time decision. Looks like he's trending towards playing. And the other thing that's really interesting here is L'Jarius Sneed, who has been a true shutdown corner this year, is also a true game-time decision. He's been banged up. If Sneed were to miss, you'd feel a lot better about Jake Browning in this game, and you'd feel a lot better. You're starting Jamar Chase anyway, because if Jamar Chase is active, you're starting Jamar Chase. Yep. He's Jamar Chase. But you would feel better about Browning, and I'd feel better about T. Higgins, because Chase is always going to get his, but if Sneed is active, and he'll be on Chase, and you'd feel better about Higgins. If Chase is out and Sneed is active, and then Higgins is on Sneed, I wouldn't feel great about that. I'm not playing Tyler Boyd. I have Tyler Boyd in a deep league. I'm not playing him today because I am expecting Chase to be back.
If he ain't first, you're last, but I am playing for third, which gets me my entry fee back.
Okay.
Thinking Jaren Hall over Jake Browning.
I don't mind that at all either.
Cool.
Again,
Right.
games
the Chiefs defense, Browning,
Yeah,
it's a
you
nice
get to
story.
live it out all the way through week 17 too. So
You know
there
what
you
I'm
go.
saying? I love
there
this.
there
all
is a
about the
little
optics.
piece of that where, like, I'll say that, like,
Delay it.
well, just,
just
if I
like-
have a toss up like that,
Yeah.
then I will, like, I'll be like, you know what? Give me a rooting interest. Like,
Sure.
look, we play this for fun, right?
Sunday
Like,
Night Football.
give me some action.
Give me a
And so I
reason
want-
besides Matthew Berry to watch
Sunday Night Football.
You know?
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I chose Hall over, Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett or any of the other options I could have had, Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, have a little fun.
Yeah, have a little fun.
Well, you know what- okay.
So there's that.
You know what has not been fun?
But anyway, Jake Browning feels like the league has figured him out a little bit.
Little bit.
Last
Wasn't
week
good
was bad.
this week.
What has not been fun, and maybe you can figure this out, Stefan Diggs. Starting Stefan Diggs and watching him disappoint. Thankfully, that's not me, but a lot of people have. It's Championship Sunday. I know at the top of Matthew Berry's 10 Commandments is don't get cute, but it's been anything but cute what Stefan Diggs been doing lately. Do you just roll him out there against the Patriots because he's Stefan Diggs, and if you don't, he gonna go off for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns because you didn't? Or do you start him and he disappoints you again and you be like, damn it, I knew I shouldn't have started Stefan
He's
Diggs.
my wide receiver 14. Since week 10, he's the 53rd best wide receiver in fantasy football. He's had single-digit fantasy points in 5 of the past 6. Since Joe Brady took over, he's averaging under 5 yards per target. They've turned this into a more conservative, run-heavy offense. They're spreading the ball around. Joe Brady's done a great job for the Bills' offense,
Yeah.
but it has not been great for Stefan Diggs'
Right.
fantasy value. If you're looking for a bright sign, again, because most people don't have the option to bench Stefan
Stephon
Diggs,
Diggs, yeah.
and if they do have the option to bench Stefan Diggs,
Congratulations.
they may not have the onions to do so because it is a ballsy thing to do, make no mistake about it. Here's what you can hang your hat on. 3 straight games, he's had at least a 30% target share. All the underlying numbers are there, and he played the Patriots earlier this year. He went 6 for 58 and a touchdown, scored 17.8 fantasy points. He has traditionally played very well against Bill Belichick. He's had big games against them as well. And so, again, I'm at wide receiver 14, but I will tell you, a good friend of mine asked me, Stefan Diggs or Rashee Rice? And I said, Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
I just talked up Rice. I mean, again, Rice has been red hot.
Yeah.
They both have good matchups. Diggs the underlying numbers are there, but the production isn't. And so
I'll tell you this, just from a strategic standpoint, if you're in a fantasy championship right now and you've been starting Stefan Diggs this week, hell, if you could win those rounds with him doing what he's done, the chances of him doing better than that are pretty good.
Pass
So-
doesn't have to be prologue.
Yeah, so, ride it out. Keep getting those points from those other receivers that you've been starting.
Yeah. I think the thing with Diggs too is that Allen's pick against the Chargers, if that's half a yard deeper, that's an 87-yard touchdown for Stefan Diggs. And how much different do we think about it if it's just one play? And the Patriots' run defense has been top 2 in the NFL. I don't think the Bills are going to be able to run the ball because no one runs the ball in the Patriots. Meanwhile, their pass defense isn't great, and Jabril Peppers, starting safety, he's out too. So I think Diggs will get right.
by the way, just very quickly,
Yeah, what you got?
it's starting to come in, and we'll get to all the inactives after the break, but I just want to point out Kyle Hamilton and Brandon Stevens are both out for the Ravens, both officially out. So that is certainly
That's
an
big.
upgrade
That's
to the Dolphins' passing attack. Raheem Mostert officially inactive as well.
Maybe not 6 touchdowns, but looking good for 2.
And something specific for Steven D'Agostino, Deontay Foreman inactive. Something to think about there.
Speaking of Steven, Jaguars.
Yes, our producer Steven, he loves his Swaguars.
No Trevor Lawrence, no C.J. Stroud either, Matthew. It's C.J. Beathard. that we
Yes,
just-
that's important.
We talked about Travis Etienne earlier. Hasn't had the most efficient season, but you think they probably will lean on him.
No team has allowed more rushing touchdowns to running backs than the Carolina Panthers. They also give up the 5th most fantasy points allowed. They just got Aaron Jones right last week. Etienne's had at least 4 receptions in 4 of the past 5.
So besides Etienne, who else you trusting?
I would say Evan Ingram.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In fact, we can trust ETN, but I probably feel better about Evan Ingram. Like, dude having a career year coming off a 10-catch game for 95 yards. Hell, 2 of his last 3 games have been for 90-plus yards, and before that, he went for 80 and a touchdown. So it's like that's the Jaguar I would feel, especially We got a backup quarterback in there, a backup quarterback with experience, but Beathard's got some experience with George Kittle and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just get with that security blanket, and that would be the best Jaguar.
And if I'm not mistaken, tight ends lately have been pretty productive against Carolina, have they not?
They certainly have. By the way, over the last month, Evan Ingram is the #1 tight end in fantasy.
Yes, sir.
He's got a 24% target share. Only Trey McBride has a higher target share than Evan Ingram. And then the most important point here is that Evan Ingram is the starting tight end for stupid Dev. So I'm just telling you, he's going to go off against me. I'm promising you right now. I am promising you he's going to have a monster game for Dev in the championship game.
He will.
For this show.
He will, but I don't know if it'll be enough to overcome CeeDee Lamb, Sun God, and David Montgomery getting the touchdown.
He's got Kamara. He's got Evan Ingram. Like, I'm starting Jawan Johnson at tight end. Like, don't get
all
me
you need
like,
out of him is a touchdown.
Yeah, no, Hawkinson went down for me. I just lost Mostert.
This is the emotional management. Like, let me just set myself up so I'm not disappointed.
CeeDee Lamb last night. It's over.
like 227 on him.
I know. Nothing's. It's fantasy. Never take
that. Is true.
I'm not tempting the fantasy gods. Thanks to Monday Night Football. All right, let's take some shots. Y'all ready?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, Matthew, lead us off.
All right. Chris McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, all of them have 100 yards and a touchdown against Washington. I'd throw George Kittle in there as well. Over the last 4 weeks, no team has allowed more points per game than Washington Commanders. They're beat up. They've phoned this in. They do not care. Ron Rivera has lost the locker room. They're beat up on both sides of the ball. They're missing two of their starting corners who were bad to begin with. This is going to be a disaster. The Niners get right. The Niners get right in this game in a big way. After losing to Baltimore. Anyway, 100 yards and touchdown for Chris McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and I'll throw George Kittle in there as well.
Why not? You know what? Lawrence, piggyback off of that.
I'm going to stay with this game here, and I don't have to tell you even about the Commanders and all their horrible defensive statistics because Matthew is an expert at that. But what I will say is Christian McCaffrey still got a chance at the MVP. Now, we know Shanahan and this offense, they bout them records and stat pad, and they tried to get CMC a record earlier this year. So they like this now that Brock is out, CMC is their chance. So I'm saying he goes for at least 186 yards and 4 touchdowns. So sorry, Matthew. Deebo and George Kittle won't get anything. CMC gonna get all of them.
Okay.
And that's who I'm hedging my MVP bet on.
It'd be awesome if the year that we said running backs don't matter this offseason, one wins the MVP. Yeah. I just want to have some fun with this real quick.
I hope CMC goes off in my 3rd place game since Cooper Kupp and Stefan Diggs got me single digits last week. And I lost by 3 points.
I just want to have some fun with this since we're piling on the Commanders right now, okay? I'm gonna raise both of you.
Okay.
Sam Darnold, QB2 numbers. This game gonna be over so fast.
Okay.
That Sam Darnold gonna get in and throw like 2 touchdown passes. So Sam Darnold.
He threw one last game.
This
way it's gonna be the other way around.
I like it.
He gonna eat right along with him. Go ahead, Jay.
Unbelievable. All right, well, I'm not going to the San Francisco-Washington game, the only one. I'm going to say Bryce Young, who I think turned the corner last week. Had played really well against Green Bay, goes for 300-plus yards. They put up 30 points. I think that he is going to keep it rolling against the Jags. I think that Jags defense is really struggling. Bryce Young goes for 250-plus passing yards. That's plus 700 on DraftKings.
I'm rooting for that. I love to see him finish strong.
He was good last week.
I mean, he was written off like as if he was a rookie quarterback. Matthew, back to you.
Okay. Zamir White, 100 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown today. He'll be a top 15 fantasy running back as well. Colts have allowed at least 100 yards from scrimmage to a running back in 5 of the past 6. Zamir White gets a massive workload. Josh Jacobs is officially inactive. That has come out. So it will be the Zamir White show on the road at Indy. Great matchup. Top 15 play for me. Zamir White, fantasy playoff superhero.
Yeah.
I definitely need him.
Like it. All right,
Jay.
My next one. You mentioned the MVP race and Christian McCaffrey. About Tyreek Hill, who I think he saw what CeeDee Lamb did last night. Tyreek Hill replicates CeeDee Lamb's 200-plus yard game. And if he does that in a win over Baltimore and Lamar Jackson, Tyreek Hill's your MVP favorite. If
With
he
a
does
guy
that.
especially if he's got a guy that, he's facing a guy that isn't all that quarterbacky.
Exactly
Yeah,
right.
Tua is very quarterbacky.
Tua would be considered quarterbacky.
Yeah. Exactly.
Lawrence.
Speaking of that same game, I'm going to go to the other receivers. Baltimore Ravens receivers, Zay Flowers and OBJ will both score a touchdown today against these Dolphins. Miami has allowed a wide receiver to catch a touchdown in 3 straight games. And in Week 16, CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks scored a touchdown against them. They'll have 2 receivers score against them this week as well.
I like it. The Rams wide receiver 3, very much a viable fantasy wide receiver 3, flex type guy. Make it 5 games in a row for Demarcus Robinson. You're talking about
Yeah, he's been
fantasy
great.
playoff superheroes. Demarcus Robinson starting in the day. Give me another touchdown, D-Rob.
All right.
He's been scoring
Fair
that much,
enough.
huh?
Matthew.
All right, my last one here. All right, so in our show league, which I've mentioned more.
I have not heard anything about it. What's
of
the
course.
latest?
Well, so like I lost T.J. Hawkinson. I've also lost Mostert. I lost, it's been tough, injury-wise.
Don't nobody want you could play. You're in the final. I can't
understand.
stand somebody in the final playing the world's smallest violin.
Stop it. Because they're going to play one smaller. So I needed a tight end. So what did Dev do? What did stupid Dev do?
What did stupid Dev do?
Stupid Dev went to the waiver wire and picked up every viable tight end. Now, how is he allowed to do this? That is a controversy that is brewing below the scenes.
Off-season meeting.
Because I put in some claims and didn't get any. It's a whole thing. I will not go there out of respect for the people that have asked me not to do that.
As you call him, stupid Dev.
No, Dev doesn't care. It's the suits. Here's what I will say though. So I found Juwan Johnson. So Juwan Johnson, Dev, mark my words, stupid Dev. Juwan Johnson has had double-digit fantasy points in back-to-back games, and now plays the Buccaneers, who are top 5 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. Juwan Johnson, 7 targets last week. He's a viable streamer this week. He finishes as the top 12 tight end. Your evil plan fails in terms of tight end, stupid Dev. Give me Juwan Johnson.
How did he not pick up Juwan Johnson, given everything you just said? How did he
Picked up
miss him?
Hunter Henry. He picked up
How did he
Chigga
miss him?
Conquo.
Which
I don't
was
know.
all good pickups
He's
to do.
stupid Dev.
How did he miss him? Like this.
By the way,
He only so many roster spots.
just so you know, this
Right.
kid Dev is like the sweetest kid in the world, and I'm just sitting here murdering him. He's
Yeah.
like the sweetest kid in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
He's
That's
done a
right.
great job this year. I'm sorry,
If he
Dev.
does beat you,
He deserves it.
if he
But
beats you,
if he beats me, he
can
deserves
you
it.
since you turned around a quarterback shirt as quickly as you did, can you make a stupid Dev T-shirt for him to wear next week?
Yeah, man.
And I will. And I will wear that.
Okay.
1,000%. I will
All
do
right.
that for Dev.
All right, Jay.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about the Commanders now.
No,
So there's two 14-point underdogs this week. The Commanders and the Patriots. They're both getting blown out. Bills, and the Niners. They both cover the 14, 2 touchdown spread.
1,000%
Those
agree.
2 teams, Patriots and the Commanders. They're done.
Here's the other thing about the Commanders. Like the Commanders, in addition to being beat up in the secondary and having given up on the season, they have 2 starters on the offensive line that are out.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not good.
against Sam Howell, who takes more. Like there's gonna be a defensive score in this game.
Christian McCaffrey might have 500 yards.
Yes.
500
I
yards.
hope he
1,000%.
does.
He might.
Yep.
He easily might.
Lawrence.
Yeah, my last one is just this. We talked about Jaren Hall a little bit earlier. I'm going to go with Jaren Hall throwing for at least 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, and leading the Vikings, who are still alive in the playoff hunt, will lead the Vikings to victory over these Packers, who just let Bryce Young have his best day as a pro. The week before that, Baker Mayfield had 4 touchdowns against him. So I'm going with Jaren Hall to do the damn thing on NBC.
I like that.
All right.
I like that. Let's go. Let's go. That would
let's
help
get
me
it.
against
Let's
stupid
get
Dev.
And I was saying about stealing my thunder earlier. Give me 125 or more yards for DeAndre Swift, but 3 brotherly love touchdowns for
yeah,
Jalen
yeah,
Hurts. So
I-
we here.
Jalen Hurts is my quarterback
like-
in the show league. So yeah, let's go.
3 brotherly love.
I know what you're
TDs.
thinking about this. Wow, Barry, this is so uncharacteristic. You've somehow taken over the show and made it all about you. But you know what? Like, it's week 17. I thought for once I thought I would try to do
Hey,
it.
man, hey, man,
That's right.
I haven't earned it yet.
All bets
I haven't
are
earned
off.
it yet.
Oh, you
I
want to
haven't
touch it
earned
yet?
it
Like
yet.
the
I haven't
Stanley
earned it
Cup?
yet, but, like-
Got it. Let's go to break here. If you are interested in betting the games this weekend and want a little more insight, my man Jay and Drew Dinzik have you covered with Bet the Edge. New episodes dropping every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern. Whether you're targeting spreads and totals, looking for value in futures markets, or circling player props, Jay and Drew have you covered. Hey, Jay, give me a New Year's resolution for fantasy, brother.
Okay, Michael. My New Year's resolution is I am no longer going to attach my good name, my arguably good name, my name to mediocrity.
Formerly good name.
Yeah, my formerly good name. And what I mean by that is, Matthew, your ride or die this year was Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's been fantastic. My 2 ride or dies this year, Michael Thomas and Najee Harris. It just hasn't worked out. I have random men messaging me on Twitter whenever Najee Harris has like an 8-yard rush or Michael Thomas would get a first down. I have a wife and 3 children. I can't have this. I can't live like this. Next year, superstars only. McCaffrey, Jefferson, Chase, only those types of. No more Najee Harris, no more Michael Thomas. All right, we're going to break. When we're back, proper shot, inactives, plenty of other good stuff. We're back soon.
There he is. That's a nice jersey, Kyler
Let's
Murray.
go.
That's a real nice jersey.
All right. Jay, you know stuff about hockey. Who's I know
Ridiculous
that's the
comments.
Penguins. I know that's the Pittsburgh Penguins. Who's number 8 on the Penguins?
Is it Sidney Crosby?
Is it Sidney Crosby?
you were living to guess
He's
Sidney
good.
Crosby.
Sidney Crosby's good.
We have
I've heard of him.
Yeah. We were at a booth adjacent to him once in Las Vegas. Remember?
No, that's true. Yeah, we were. Yeah, we were.
Anyway,
Me and Jay, we were partying one night in Vegas.
Well, Kyler Murray had that was a sick jersey. He was sick.
Jersey.
He's active though.
Yeah.
You're all degenerates just like the rest of us, so you already know the inactives. But in case you missed it, Kyler Murray, Alvin Kamara, Michael Pittman Jr., Puka Nacua, Zay Flowers, Cole Kmet all up. Jacoby Brissett out, meaning Sam Howell. About that whole benching you thing, you're up. Josh Jacobs, Raheem Mostert as mentioned, and Zay Jones all among the key skill position inactives. Matthew's already told you that Zamir White is a top 15 play. Who else jumps out on this list of deep league ads available in over 40% of leagues?
Kind of like Justice Hill today. Just again, I know Gus Edwards better chance to fall into the end zone, but Justice Hill played over 62% of the snaps last week. Again, he's just part of a good offense there, and he is part of the passing attack there.
How about Gainwell eating against Arizona?
No team has allowed more fantasy points to running backs than Kenneth Gainwell in a game that could get out of hand quickly. They keep using him a lot. And Tajay Spears has 4 straight games now with double-digit touches. He had 6 or more targets in 3 of those as well. And so in a game in which, because C.J. Stroud is back, I expect that, and the Texans are at home where Stroud plays so well, I think Tennessee is probably down in this game and throwing. Will Levis is expecting back for the, Will Levis is back for the Titans, and so we saw the last big game that Tajay Spears had was that crazy comeback against Miami where he was just peppering Tajay Spears.
I've already talked up Demarcus Robinson's scoring streak. You mentioned Rashid Shaheed playing a full-time role last week.
Yeah, and by the way, Bucs have allowed more yards to wide receivers this season than any other team in the NFL. Pop Douglas, again, Demario Douglas is, probably more of a floor play than an upside play, but if you're desperate, he does have at least 5 receptions in 5 of the 6 games. Hunter Henry officially out as well, and so Bailey Zappi seems to be most comfortable in the middle of the field, and they should be throwing quite a lot against Buffalo.
And if you're down bad at quarterback or tight end, well, I guess we're all down bad at quarterback these days. Jake Browning, Derek Carr. You like Derek Carr against that Bucs secondary?
They're the worst pass defense in the NFL as well.
So that would be a yes?
Yes, honestly, I do. I think you see him there. I'm QB 14 as well. Browning could be okay in what is potentially a shootout here as well. Chigakonkwo, not that he's on my team because, of course, Dev stole. By the way, stupid Dev, just to sort of give me the middle finger, waved him this morning. So I can't get him. Picked him up.
Right, that's the move right there.
Kept him on his bench
Available
the whole
to pick
week.
up on Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't
wave. He did that with Hunter. He did that with every tight end. He picked him up, waved. But anyway, it's worth noting, since week 12, Chigakonkwo is the top 12, is tight end 12 in fantasy points per game. Houston struggles against the tight end as well. And Gerald Everett, I think, is really interesting. No Keenan Allen, no Josh Palmer for this game. The stick man, Easton Stick, seems to like to look for Gerald Everett, and no team allows more fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends than your Denver Broncos. And so I do think Gerald Everett is a very viable streamer today as well.
Before we get to this question, you hate stupid Dev for what he did, but you low-key love it because it seems like something you before. You would have done that.
I said this privately in our group chat, and I will say this publicly now. I have literally no issue at all with Dev.
Yeah.
Dev played within the rules.
Yeah.
I have an issue with our rules that allowed a player to get a lot more picks than me. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I promised people I wouldn't go off on this thing. I would just say, yes, he got 5 picks before I was able to make a pick, which strikes me as
weird,
unfair.
Yes.
I will just say.
But you realize that's been in place all year.
Correct.
Because I was a victim of that several times.
Exactly.
Yeah, me too. That's why I got last in the league. I was a victim of this rule in our show league.
Yeah, the settings need to be changed.
Don't get me started on our settings or our commissioner. But what I will say is, given that I have no problem with Dev picking up. It's absolutely the right play.
A good fight is never clean.
No, sometimes the best offense is a good defense. I have no issue with that move from a fantasy. He did nothing wrong at all. He did it right. That's a smart. I'll sit here and bitch about it on air, but legitimately,
any edge you can get.
No. Don't don't hate the player, hate the game.
There you go.
Right? Honestly, Dev did it absolutely right. Super smart by him. And I would say to you, if you're looking out there, and you're saying hey, I would grab Jeff Wilson Jr. If my opponent had Mostert, obviously Achan's already rostered in your league. But like, I'd grab Jefferson
Yeah.
just so we can't use him. I would use him myself, but like,
Because you know what you're not gonna help you? Bench guys, bench space.
guys.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
your entire bench should be nothing but
use
like
the tools at your disposal.
you know,
Hey
they-
George, what's the word?
Oh, George Savaricas.
All right, so
We know him.
Was a viewer, was a
a little
host,
bit.
and now he's back to being a viewer.
So here's what I like. QB Kyler, parentheses, sick. Stidham or Jaren Hall. McLaurin, no Brissett. Thank you for all the information here. Or Lockett at flex. Standard scoring. A big thank you to Matthew for dropping Flacco Thursday. My buddy Brian also panic dropped Flacco Thursday. Giving George a shot in the championship matchup.
Wow. So he went from viewer to host to now troll. Okay, great. Thanks, George. Quite the hero arc for you. I'm going. Well, why am I helping you? He just you guys can help.
Michael,
me.
you should have seen it last week where Matthew started trying to talk golf, given that George works on Golf Channel.
Mm-hmm.
And the first golfer that he came up with was Justin Watson, who's a receiver on the Chiefs and doesn't
I
play
know,
golf.
Justin
He
Thomas.
might play
so
golf
much.
though.
I got a
He may
bunch
play
of old
golf.
dead
He
ones.
might
Justin
play all
Watson.
season. He played golf.
I think
does.
But that doesn't top the Arnold Palmer, though. Which
No,
is also
no,
my
no,
choice.
it's
This
not
is
the
what
one.
we started the show with. Thanks for
Listen,
paying
George,
attention
I think you're
today.
starting Kyler Murray. It's still
Yes,
Kyler Murray.
correct.
You know, Stidham might do something. Jaren Hall might do something. Kyler Murray is just so much more of a proven commodity.
Yeah. 20 points last week.
McLaurin or Lockett at flex. I think that's close. Now that Howell is back, that makes me feel worse about McLaurin. I'm
going
going
Lockett.
Tyler Lockett at his high floor.
I'm going with Lockett. I mean, again, Steelers secondary's banged up. Game's in Seattle.
Yep.
I think Gino usually plays better at home. I think they get right there.
Pick 2 in non-PPR, Connor Kamara, Aaron Jones, or Ty Chandler, who George has been saying since the preseason is the better back than Alexander Mattison.
Yeah, on the Golf Channel.
Yeah.
Where he just
Players Championship. A lot
Right.
of Ty Chandler chat.
Yeah,
it's real good.
Exactly as well. He's just like, Tiger's approaching 12, but I really like this Ty Chandler. All right, I'm going with Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's for me. I have Jones just slightly higher than Chandler, so that's the Sunday night game you can sort of feel, but like definitely Kamara. Kamara, who by the way is on Stupid Dev's team, he's going to have a monster game today.
Zay Flowers and Zamir White for flex and PPR.
I'm going with Zamir White. I like Zay Flowers obviously quite a bit, but I like the under in that game.
Me too.
The Dolphins-Ravens game,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's a lower
too.
scoring game. I want to say 46 and a half,
Yeah,
I think.
I think it's going to be a slugfest. These
I
are
think-
two excellent defenses.
Might
Yeah.
hover more around 40-ish.
46 and a half. Yeah, I like the under in that game. I think they might take away Zay Flowers. It might be an Isaiah Likely game. You know, Lamar might do some quarterbacky stuff where he just runs
Quarterbacky
around.
stuff,
And anyway, I'm giving Zamir White. I think. By the way, I also think Zamir White's got the better shot at a touchdown.
Zay Flowers
They
also
get it.
injured. He only got ruled in like 30 minutes ago.
Right.
He's carrying the calf thing, so that's another little concern.
Yep. All right, time for proper shot. It's been a couple of weeks, man. I don't know if
Oh boy.
might be a little rusty. I was so
think
hot
yeah,
before before I was on the
don't
injured
remember.
list. Not the injured list. I was away from the team.
All right.
Personal. I was
I'll go
whatever.
first.
Yeah, you go.
Jared Stidham.
Yeah, that's
That
about
was
what
very
Jared
accurate.
Stidham going
How
to
did
do.
Jared Stidham get astray just now?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know.
Oh,
Go
why
ahead.
do you always stand up for these?
I like to stand up because
Doesn't help.
I'm better off. I make them when I stand up.
Okay.
Do you?
Yeah. Well,
Can
I have.
we do some
I have
research
made
on
some.
that? Oh, you've
I
made
have-
one.
I have-
Okay,
I have
yeah.
made some.
Previously, okay.
Look at that.
Oh.
That one went
Yeah,
in.
I saw it.
Just hit the
Are you
just
gonna
hit the
believe? Are you gonna
board.
believe your eyes? What I told you?
It kind of moved a little bit, so it makes the degree of difficulty a little, harder
Easier?
for me. Yeah.
Oh.
but
Show me
I'm-
how quarterbacky you
Yeah,
are.
I'm quarterbacky right here. Ah, man.
That was nice.
Damn.
Michael really goes with the Stafford kind of side.
Arm
I
angles,
will
man.
say this.
I'm an arm angles guy. I'm all
Phil
When
Rivers
we
is
started
everywhere.
Pop a
Yeah.
Shot last year, we had a basketball,
should,
and
so.
that was more fun, and it made
Was
more
it?
sense. Sure, we actually
Substantially
made that. It was
easier.
easier. I
Yeah.
feel like it's easier than
Well,
this.
this thing right here, they got a game like this
We're a
at,
football show, though.
at Dave and Buster's.
Yeah.
But I just throw them in. I don't throw them in
That
like a real
game-
football.
That game is
You
called
gotta-
UBQB, and I crush at that game with a. It's got a conveyor belt because I get into
Yeah,
a rhythm.
yeah,
But
right.
doing one right here when I'm busy dishing out knowledge, and then I got to stop to
That's it.
So
That's
left
it.
bra- yeah, your whole
It's
brain.
It's
just
a
got-
whole. I
yeah.
got a lot going on over here.
Okay.
I'll gather some more. And you
Okay.
can practice. But let's start with this. Jay, A.J. Brown receptions over under 6.5.
Going under, just the game script thing. The Eagles are almost 2 touchdown favorites in this thing. They established the run. against Arizona's mediocre run defense.
Lawrence, Cooper Kupp receiving yards over under 69.5.
You know I'm going to go over, man. He's had at least 110 yards and a touchdown 2 of his last 3 games. He's averaging 10 targets a game in those 3 games. That should be enough for him to get over. Furthermore, the Giants allowed A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to go over this, so I'm hitting over.
Matthew, Zamir White's rushing yards over under 73.5.
I'm going to go over. Like last 2 weeks, he's averaging 19.5 carries per game. On the road, that's what Antonio Pierce wants to do, is run the ball, play good defense. Colts have allowed at least 74 rushing yards to a running back in all but 2 games this season. And Zamir White, who's getting majority of work, I think he goes over 73.5. By the way, Colts also allowed 4.5 yards per carry to running backs in the last month.
Jay, Baker Mayfield passing yards over under 236.5.
This is too low. I'm taking the over here. Saints defense has struggled lately. They just don't have a pass rush. Baker's playing at a really high level with a lot of confidence, and he becomes the leader in the non-Damar Hamlin comeback player of the year race.
Lawrence, Travis Etienne's yards from scrimmage over under 85.5.
It looks like it could be easy, but I'm going to go under, man. He ain't hit this number in 4 straight weeks. And the Panthers, now for the season, they're not a good run defense, but they haven't allowed this number in 2 of their last 3 games. We just saw Aaron Jones go off against them, but the Carolina defense playing better. I still got questions about the Jags offense, so give me the under on ETN.
Matthew, Patrick Mahomes completions over under 25.5.
I'm going over. First off, he's been over this number in back-to-back games. Even though they've struggled, he's actually been over this number in back-to-back games. And he's also hit this number in 6 of his 9 wins this season. They're 6.5-point favorites over the Bengals today. I do think they win this game. So give me the over 25.5 completions for Patrick Mahomes.
Jay, Josh Allen's passing yards over under 238.5.
Taking the over here. Patriots have an awesome run defense. This is a pass funnel defense, like I mentioned earlier, missing Jabril Peppers. And Michael, if Lamar Jackson loses today or plays really poorly in a win, Josh Allen wins MVP next week with a win.
All right, Lawrence, Bijan Robinson's yards from scrimmage over under 74.5.
I'm going to hit the over on this, despite what's the Falcons' offense being unpredictable and giving him the balls. He's hit this number 5 of his last 6 games. The Bears, while improved, they've allowed this number to hit in 2 of their last 3 games. So the Bears' defense is better, but not that much better to where Bijan can get 75 scrimmage yards.
All right. Matthew, how quarterbacky is Lamar Jackson today when you combine his passing and rushing yards over under 290.5?
I think he's pretty quarterbacky. I think he should be the MVP. I will say if I was voting today, Lamar Jackson would get my MVP vote. Having said that, give me the under on 290.5 rushing, passing and rushing yards, right? First off, he's been under this number in every game this year except for 6. Miami's had allowed under 200 passing yards in 5 of the past 6. Jackson has been under this number in 5 or 6 games when he has 40 or fewer rushing yards. Again, the Dolphins, one of the better run defenses in the NFL. Vic Fangio's done a really great job with this defense. We talked about this earlier in the show. I think this game is a slugfest. I like the under in this game, and I like the under on Lamar Jackson passing and rushing yards at 290.5.
Jay, Derrick Henry rushing attempts over under 14.5.
Taking the over here on Derrick Henry. Every player on the Texans' defensive line has an injury designation. Like, they're really banged up at the moment, and I think this game will be close enough. The line is 4 that Henry goes over.
Will Anderson is active, but it's worth noting here, stupid Dev has Derrick Henry on his team, so he's probably going for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I thought he was going there too.
Interesting.
Lawrence,
IDP?
DK Metcalf receiving yards over under 64.5.
You know, it's been a little flip-flop with him the past couple of weeks. He's hit this number 2 of his last 4 games, but in 3 straight weeks, T. Higgins has went over this number. Michael Pittman has went over this number. And my man, Juju Smith-Schuster, went for 90 yards against them. So give me the over for DK Metcalf against Pittsburgh.
And Matthew, Justin Jefferson receiving yards over under 78.5.
I'm taking the over. He's been over this number in back-to-back games now. No Jair Alexander for the Packers as well. Every game in where he's ever seen double-digit targets, he's had at least 80 receiving yards, meaning he's beat this number. And you think about Jaren Hall. You're a rookie. You're trying to make this team. You want to go,
Jefferson
what are
down
you
there
doing?
somewhere.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing? You're not ignoring Justin Jefferson. You're like, that's your first read. I don't care what the play is called. Your first read is always Justin Jefferson.
Show Jaren Hall how it's done.
Yeah, exactly, like this.
I'm getting a redo too. I'm getting me a
almost a
redo.
pick.
I like the confidence there.
Oh man, 0 for 2. How you do that, Lawrence?
Oh, snap. Okay, let's
We
just
out
go
here
to break
breaking
off of that. Don't forget on DraftKings Sportsbook this season, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Are we still missing? Download the app and use the promo code BARRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Lawrence, what's your New Year's Eve resolution?
Man, headed into this New Year's, my resolution is just to next year just draft a fantasy football team where I had no injuries at all. Because it ain't like football. It's a physical game. It's not like dudes just running into each other, the best, most muscular, fastest athletes in the world. They ain't doing none of that. So I want to draft myself a team with no injuries because I think that is very plausible next season. So that's going to be my New Year's resolution. If I have to, I will draft my team and I'll give them a pep talk myself like I'm the coach because I am the coach. I draft these players. I don't expect them to get hurt at all because they work out so much in the off season. They do all this training. I don't want to see no ACLs and Achilles and people having illnesses on Wednesday that cause them to be questionable. I want nothing. We will be right back with you with our fantasy football rankings. Let's go.
Okay, Jalen.
Let's go, Jalen.
Gonna float like a butterfly,
Clean.
sting like a bee.
Fantasy ride or die from
Muhammad
last
Ali
year.
jacket.
That is
sweet.
fresh.
Looking good.
look.
Look good, feel good, play good.
That's right.
He's your number one quarterback.
Yes, he is. Yes, sir.
He and Lamar Jackson are very quarterback-y.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Brock Purdy in his bounce-back game against your Commanders.
Look, no team in the. I appreciate you asking me to give you some bad stats about the Commanders because I have about 1 million, and I would like to share them over the next hour and a half. I'll just do 3. No team in the NFL has allowed more fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks this season than my Washington Commanders. No team allows passing touchdowns at a higher rate than my Washington Commanders. No team has allowed at least 28 points in 6 straight games like my Washington Commanders. Brock Purdy, he's got his players wearing his jacket, like,
They rallying.
They rallying.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy going to have a big game, QB4. If I will say this as well.
The stupid dev had Brock Purdy?
No,
okay.
you'd think he would.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. If, I'm curious what you think about this.
Yeah.
If Lamar Jackson struggles against Miami,
Yeah.
and Miami wins, has a big game, and it's Lamar throws a bad pick, a pick 6 down the stretch, something like that, and Purdy has like a monster 300 yards, 4 touchdown game against the Command, does that race switch? Is Purdy back in? Honestly, I don't think it should because of degree of difficulty, but it might.
Honestly, I think he's done. I think he's done after how bad that performance was. I think if he'd thrown 1 touchdown and 2 picks, he could get back into it. But I think people wrote him off after that game because people already had their doubts and it was like they were all confirmed, justifiably or not. I don't think he's 0%, but I think it's really uphill. If Lamar loses today, I think your MVP is whoever wins Week 18 between Tyreek Hill and Josh Allen. I think that's your MVP race at that
I
point.
like
but
that. By
it
the
would
way,
be
Josh
chaotic.
Allen's like 10-1 now.
This is the most emotional, illogical MVP race discussion I have seen in many years. This year's MVP race is just like it's out of control. It's like it's so week to week.
Who's your MVP, Michael? If Lamar loses today, we assume Lamar wins today. He's the MVP.
And keep this in mind. I'm not eligible to win the award.
But I mean, not to derail the show more than it typically is. I don't like the idea of if Lamar Jackson's the MVP, he's the MVP regardless of the outcome of today's game. Like, how are we defining most valuable player? Is it player of the year? Is it who played the best at the end of the season? Is it the guy that you take off off that team and they wouldn't be as good? Like, we're moving the goalposts week to week, player by player.
Well, and by the
it's
way,
like 3
voter to
weeks
voter.
ago, Lamar Jackson was
it's
not
about
the
the
MVP.
it's
voter
about
to
the
voter,
narrative,
because
too.
some people will say like, well, you took this guy off, and like that's the anti-Brock Purdy argument. Is it's like any quarterback in that system with those guys could do that, right? I mean,
if you combine the best season statistically, performance-wise, and consistency with the person who feels like the team is different when they're on or off the field, it's Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not opposed to
I'm
it.
not
it's
opposed to that.
Tyreek Hill.
You know, this too, it's like Tua is being omitted from this, but he's third in every sports book. He just played a game without Tyreek Hill and played very well. So I would say it would take a Tyreek Hill to have a CD Lamb type of game for him, because Tyreek Hill is like 6th or 7th in odds right now.
But listen, and this is the dumb argument, but like again, to your point about all this, honestly, by this criteria, Aaron Rodgers should be one of the finalists.
Right. You
Who's
took him off the team.
This is a team that was considered a Super Bowl champion team, and now they're going to be picking in the top 5.
Controversial. I know. I
Do you understand
understand.
what I'm saying?
I understand
That's the
what you're
logic.
saying, but-
That's the logic.
Yeah. If we don't have to hypothesize. If you took him, you did take him off the team.
Right,
And they fell apart.
and they fell apart.
Yeah.
Here's my reason. Here's why I would vote for Josh Allen. Is that if the Bills don't have 12 men on the field against the Broncos for the field goal, and Jake Elliott doesn't make a 59-yarder in the rain, Josh Allen's won MVP. His stats are so much better, and the team would have at that point they'd be going on track to be 13-4 and a 2 seed, and then Allen's just a unanimous MVP. But 2 little events that he had no control over whatsoever are the reason that he's not the favorite.
And he's got 40 touchdowns again this
And
season.
everyone thinks he's an MVP level
people say
player.
if Lamar
It's
loses,
a lot of plays like
Lamar's
that,
not
though, because
losing.
if Kadarius Toney lines up on the right side,
Yeah,
that's
but
another
Mahomes-
loss for the Bills. So it's a lot of that.
But
going
he's-
on.
but he's-
Dave Davis needed to also run, run the right route.
Yes, that's another one. I just think the way that the individual has played, what they have been able to control, I think Josh Allen's been the best quarterback.
But even the idea if Lamar Jackson loses, or the plays where Josh Allen, quarterbacks, it's not a quarterback stat. Wins and losses. The Ravens could lose to the Dolphins today, but what if Lamar plays great?
Yep.
So it's just a.
It's
been a frustrating. It feels a lot like last year's.
It's what makes it good.
It allows people to do what we do.
And Jokic
It gives
should've
us
won.
stuff to
That's
talk
true.
about.
That's true.
That
Good
is
content.
the brilliance of it.
Wait, Jay, Josh Allen. Okay, we gave you MVP argument. What about for Week 17? What you think about Josh Allen?
Well, the thing with Josh Allen is that the past 2 weeks, they just haven't been Josh Allen-ish games. I mean, last week a little bit more, where he had the 2 rushing touchdowns. The week before that, against Dallas, he does effectively, he doesn't have to do anything. He just completes 7 passes. I think we're going to see a Josh Allen type of game today, because I think they're going to need to throw. I think it's going to be more of the 270 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. I think Josh Allen reminds everyone that this offense, as much as they run the ball more now, it's still his offense. It still goes through Josh.
Absolutely. And Lawrence, Kyler Murray?
Yeah, and I think Kyler Murray reminds us that he could be, a top 10 fantasy quarterback, even though Hollywood Brown is out for the season. Quarterback 12 last week against the improved Chicago Bears defense, and he has started to pick it up with his rushing, with 49 rushing yards and then another 32 last week. And we know what Philly's defense represents. It hasn't gotten better at all. Tyrod Taylor and Drew Lock both had success against this Eagles defense. So, feel good about Murray now that he's active.
Lawrence just said something interesting, Matthew, a second ago about Tua being overlooked and omitted from this conversation.
I agree.
Can he insert himself into this conversation with a marquee performance minus Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert opposite Lamar Jackson?
No.
Cool. Thanks for playing.
Rightly or
Okay.
wrongly,
Just hasn't been an MVP type of season from Tua.
Rightly or wrongly, if they're going to reward the Dolphins offense, they're going to reward Tyreek Hill somehow. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying the perception is that Tua is, again, a little bit like Brock Purdy in that he's a benefit of McDaniel's genius. Like, I just don't think Tua gets the.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying I feel like that's the narrative. The narrative is
It's very Brock Purdy-ish when it comes to Tua. Not as bad.
Brock Purdy was like minus 175 for 3 weeks with that team.
Yeah.
But Purdy's stats are so much better than Tua's across the board. and everything.
Tua leads the league passing yards.
And again, you just sort of see you see Achane and Mostert having these big runs, and so just again, right?
But yeah, that's why he's not the favorite.
Tua does not just get any credit. I will say this as well. I'm down on Tua today. I'm at QB 13. I'm outside my top 10 as well. 13 teams. 13 different teams are projected to score more points than Miami this week. Only 2 quarterbacks this entire year. 2 have scored more than 17 fantasy points against the Ravens. They've also allowed the fewest passing touchdowns this season. Now, we talked about this earlier. Kyle Hamilton's out as is Brandon Stevens. So their secondary is bait up. So it is a good matchup. But no Jalen Waddle, no Raheem Mostert here. So now, his weapons, it's already a kind of narrow tree. And now it's Tyreek Hill, it's Cedric Wilson, it's Devon Achane, which is nice. Durham Smythe, Braxton Berrios. I'm nervous. We've talked about this before. I think this game is a slugfest. I like the under at 46.5. He's my QB 13 this week.
Lawrence, show some love to Jordan Love, will you?
Yeah, got him. He's quarterback 12, but I do feel differently about Love than Tua this week, just based on the matchups alone and based on the fact that Jordan Love, on a points per game basis, has been quarterback 7 since week 12. Goff had a nice little game against Minnesota. We saw Jake Browning in week 15. He was quarterback 8 against this Vikings defense, which the Vikings defense over the second half of the season, Brian Flores has had them applying pressure. But you can still find, you can find your spots here and there. And Jordan Love, to end this, he's thrown at least 2 touchdowns in 6 of his last 7 games.
All right. Geno Smith, what you got?
We don't talk about Geno Smith much because he had the amazing season last year where he won Comeback Player of the Year, but his past 2 starts ago against Dallas, he played the best game of his entire career. He went blow for blow with Dak Prescott, who at the time was the MVP favorite. And then last week, in a game that no one watched because Seattle, Tennessee, he led them down the field and he won that game, and he was excellent. So I think Geno, even though statistically it hasn't been quite the same, even though he's been overshadowed by Drew Lock and getting hurt, he's still having an excellent season, and he gets a pretty favorable matchup against the Steelers team that doesn't have any safeties anymore.
All right. Running backs, and the revelation that is or has been Kyren Williams, Matthew.
Yeah, look, since returning in week 12, he's had at least 22 touches, not a typo, 22 touches in every single game. No running back has more touches inside an opponent's 10-yard line in goal-to-go situations than Kyren Williams in that stretch. By the way, running backs that see at least 15 touches against the Giants, and again, He's had 22 in every game since he returned. Running backs that have seen at least 15 touches against your New York Giants are averaging 18.3 fantasy points per game.
Renowned Giants fan, Michael Smith.
News to me.
Just trying to throw
Shareholder
that on
Sean,
you.
start 3. Kyron Duh, Zeke, Zamir, Achane. Was going to sit Achane until the news this morning. Leaning Zeke now because of potential game flow. I think he gets a lot of volume regardless.
I agree with you, shareholder Sean, that he does get a lot of volume regardless. Bailey Zappi likes to check down to him. But again, I'm just going like, who's more likely to score points, the Dolphins or the Patriots? Like, it's the Dolphins. Like, so you're like, who's I would start Achane and I would sit Ezekiel Elliott. Even though I do think Zeke's going to be fine today. But like, because volume will get you there. But like,
It's between those two?
I think, well, you're
not Zamir. You definitely
no, he
start
says start
Zamir.
3. Yeah, I'm starting.
Okay.
I'm starting. To me, Kyron Williams, Zamir White,
Lock.
Devon Achane
Okay.
that's who I would.
Got it.
Just quietly as well, because no one thinks about this because people don't put up big rushing numbers against the Ravens. That's not because the Ravens have a good rushing defense. That is because the Ravens are just leading in every single game because they're so good. By efficiency on a play-by-play basis, their rushing defense is below average. You
Right.
can
Okay.
run on the Ravens, and
Okay.
the offensive line for the Dolphins getting a bit healthier. Achane, particularly if you're in a matchup where you need upside, like who has more upside than Devon Achane? The guy's the fastest guy I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. No, that's pretty
And
good.
he's seen me run.
Yes.
Just to
More
give
of
you a
an
comparison.
aggressive dawdle.
Jay,
Not even that aggressive. That's more of just a dawdle.
Jay,
I mean, unless it's free popcorn day, and then I'm like,
Yes,
you know.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's Usain Bolt in Beijing.
Yeah, exactly.
who was it? It might have been you earlier, Matthew. You weren't high on, probably. You weren't high on James Cook rushing against the Patriots, or was that you?
Well, it might as well be me because I'm
Okay.
not that high on him today. I know that James Cook, he will have propelled a lot of people through their season, but this is as difficult of a matchup as it gets. You just cannot run on the Patriots. Their run defense is excellent, right there with Atlanta and Chicago is the best in the NFL right now. So Cook, the good thing about him is his skill set is diversified.
Yeah, but
so he can
how are
work
they
as a pass
against
catcher.
pass catching running backs? How are they in that category?
Don't know specifically, Michael,
Okay.
but I do think that James Cook, just the nature of his game, is
Yeah.
that he will give you some
Yep.
production, but I don't think it's going to be just running through.
I'm starting
Yeah, I'll just tell you this. Like, again, very disappointing production fantasy-wise last week
20
in that
carries.
Chargers games. But
Still, yeah.
but the the volume was still there, but the
Yeah.
production was still there as well. I don't think you're going away from that. Ask somebody YouTube. Mike
pick
R
3.
watching on YouTube.
Aaron Jones, Jamar Chase, James Cook, Nico, and at tight end, pick 1. Kincaid, Taysom, or Tommy Tremble.
Dalton Kincaid, that's the easy one as well. What, you can't start Taysom. Come on, we're all on
can't
Juwan
start
Johnson.
Tremble?
You can't start, or Tommy Tremble. You can't start
not?
Taysom Hill. Like, come on, we're all on Juwan Johnson today. Mike, get stupid Dev.
Tell
this
Mike,
has got to be a
tell
group.
Mike that if Juwan Johnson is available to pick him up.
There you go. You just did. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Tommy
I
Tremble's.
did.
I know Tommy Tremble's been coming on a little bit, but I'd
Fair
rather Josh
question.
Allen throw me balls than Bryce Young. So I'm going to say Kincaid here for me. In terms of these 3, I definitely think you're starting James. I like all of them. I guess I probably benching Aaron Jones in that one. Like
Yeah.
Nico Collins is a top 10 wide receiver for me. At home against Tennessee with C.J. Stroud back, I think you're starting Nico Collins. I think you're starting James Cook. So now it's Jamar Chase versus Aaron Jones. If Jamar Chase is active,
Yeah.
I-
Particularly if Snead's out.
again, I don't think you could screw that up because I like all 4 guys, Mike. But Aaron Jones is actually who I think I would bench there.
Okay. Lawrence, your thoughts on DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, we wouldn't bench DeAndre Swift, especially going up against Arizona, who allows the most points per game in fantasy. 2 running backs.
Have
They've
we
had-
said run funnel today? I don't think we said run funnel.
We'll throw it in there right now, especially talking about the Cardinals. That run funnel defense has had 2 straight games where they've allowed a running back to go for at least 110 rushing yards. We saw DeAndre Swift go for 92 on 20 carries, and he finally got in the end zone last week, so we definitely like him a lot there. Running back 7 there for Matthew is definitely appropriate.
All right. A little deeper down the running back rankings. You said you bench Aaron Jones in that scenario, Matthew, but he still is just outside your top 15.
I'm at running back 16, as you see it there on your screen. Look, what's been nice is they finally freed Aaron Jones. Back-to-back games with 17 or more touches. Had only 2 such games prior to this last 2-game stretch. A.J. Dillon clearly dealing with a thumb there as well. They're banged up in the receiving core. Christian Watson's not going to play. Dontavian Wicks is questionable. We do expect Jaden Reed back tonight, but still, and you've got Romeo Doubs, but they're banged up in the pass catching department. And so Aaron Jones, who again, back-to-back games with 17 or more touches, faces a Vikings defense that's allowed at least 100 yards from scrimmage to an opposing running back in 3 of the past 4 games. I have Aaron Jones at running back 16. Free Aaron Jones.
Lawrence, Austin Eckler.
Yeah, haven't liked him a lot recently in fantasy, but I love him this week against Denver because in his past 5 games, he's had 1 game over 12 points, and it was against Denver, who allow the 2nd most fantasy points per game to running backs. Fire up back again, Austin Eckler in your fantasy championship.
All right, and Jay Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, it's not a great matchup for Bijan against a really strong rushing defense, but I think just the strides that he's shown, particularly last week, I mean, he looked incredible against the Colts. I think you have to start him in every league, but I wouldn't be expecting amazing things.
All right. Running backs 21 through 30, if we could throw those on the screen. Matthew, how you feeling about Jalen Warren at Seattle today?
I kind of like Jalen Warren. I mean, first off, he's not Najee Harris, Jay.
My boy.
His 2 highest snap share rates of the season have both come in the last 2 weeks as well. Back-to-back games with an over 20% target share on the road at Seattle. The expectation here is, I think Mason Rudolph got a little lucky last week against the Bengals. I think going to be a little bit of an awakening here for Mason Rudolph. So I do think under pressure, I think he'll be dumping off a little bit more to Jalen Warren. I think they'll be down and trailing in this game. He's my running back 23. I think Jalen Warren's a very viable flex today.
All right. Pick one for flex: Zamir White, Michael Pittman, Devontae Smith, or Jalen Warren in standard scoring.
I think it's got to be Pittman. Pittman, by the way, plays for Stupid Deb. Going to have a monster game here. But just honestly, like he just gets such a massive target share. I get it. The Raiders have played unbelievable defense. If you wanted to go Devontae Smith, I wouldn't argue it. But the concern with Devontae Smith is A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Hurts, Swift. They're playing the Cardinals. Yep. They could just be up big. I'm worried about that. Zamir White, I like him a lot more than Jalen Warren, but I think it's got to be Pittman. He's had such great volume throughout this entire season. I think there's floor and upside. Again, he's starting for Stupid Dev. He's going to go off. I'm telling you. I promise you. Big game coming for Pittman.
Jay, does Derrick Henry go off against Houston today?
I don't think so. Derrick Henry's averaging 3.9 yards per carry on the season.
He's on Dev's team.
He is on Dev's. Okay, well, no, all right. No, he does go off there. No, I think Henry's going to struggle. And look, as I mentioned before, Houston's D-line is really banged up, even though Will Anderson is active. But this has been the number 6 run defense in the NFL this season. Henry just seems to have 0 acceleration. He needs so much space to be able to get going. So I think that he will get some work and he'll get the goal line carries, but I wouldn't expect a huge day from Henry.
What's your expectations for Najee Harris, Lawrence?
Well, I like Jalen Warren as well, but I also like Najee Harris. And when you're talking about today,
we're an anti-Najee Harris show.
Today, because we talk about, about having a better chance to score a touchdown. I think that'll be Najee Harris against Seattle, who's the 6th worst rushing defense, and he has yet to be out-carried by Jalen Warren this season.
Okay. All right. Wide receivers, Matthew, you kind of gave us a little sneak preview on the Nico Collins conversation. He is in your top 10, number 7.
Yeah, he is. And you see Pittman right there at 8. I'm not just saying that for the jokes there. I do love Pittman. I love Nico Collins. Think about those first 13 weeks when he played his full games with C.J. Stroud. He was wide receiver 9 on a points per game basis, right? At home this season. All 7 of his touchdowns have come at home, and he's averaging 23 fantasy points per game as well. Tennessee, top 5 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. So Nico Collins, getting C.J. Stroud back at home in a good matchup, easy top 7 play for me.
Lawrence, Matthews already said how much he loves Rashee Rice today. How about you?
Yeah, I'll just, drive that home a little more there. Rashee Rice, clearly their number 1 receiver. 32 targets in his 4 previous games. We just saw George Pickens come from the fantasy football dead for almost 200 yards against Cincinnati. That's not really his type of game. That's not his play. But, going against Cincinnati, who allows the 6th most points to fantasy receivers, you must feel extremely great about young Rashee Rice.
Damian needs us to pick 3 in PPR: Jonathan Taylor, Chris Olave, Rashee Rice, and Puka. Looking for that ship. Happy New Year to you too, Damian. I love people that say ship.
Yeah,
it's very grammatically correct to go ship as opposed to chip.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I really do
We're big on
appreciate
grammar
that.
here.
Yeah.
For me, I think, look, I think you got to start Jonathan Taylor, right? So now it's which wide receiver you're benching. And I'll just tell you, so just so you know, so I have Olave at 9. I have Rashee Rice at 6. I have Puka at, where do I have Puka? Puka at 12, I think, right? No, I have him at 10. I'm at 10. Puka, you're benching. But I mean, I think they all have huge games. I don't think you could screw this up, but I'm going to go Olave, Rice, and Taylor, and I'm benching Puka just because it could be a Cooper Kupp game. We've seen Demarcus Robinson get in. It's the Giants and Tyrod Taylor that could be a defensive scorer.
Right.
Puka would be who I would bench here. But again, I don't think you can screw it up because I do think all 4 of those guys have big games today. Damian Schmalls, I like that name.
Yeah,
Like the last name.
Biggie Schmalls.
Biggie
That'd be the name of mine.
That should
Smalls for the ship.
Schmalls
There
for
you
anyway, Michael just gave you your team name next year if you haven't done it already. Biggie Schmalls. Come on, that's great. That's awesome. Come on, stop.
Good.
Jay, we talked a lot about Baker Mayfield. Let's big up Mike Evans.
No Marshall and Lattimore. No Marshall and Lattimore for Mike
No
Evans
fights.
this time. No fights. For Mike Evans.
No ejections.
So you feel great that he's going to win the game. And that's all he really needs to do these days to put up big fantasy days. He's got such an amazing connection with Baker Mayfield. Saints defense has really struggled the past couple of months, so I think Evans has a big game.
All right, let's keep that theme going, Matthew, with Chris Godwin.
Chris Godwin is my wide receiver 17. He's had 3 straight games now with a target share above 30%. He's had at least 3 deep targets in each one of those games. Saints have faced the 3rd most slot targets this season. That's a place that you can always attack New Orleans is the middle of the field. Baker's playing well. Godwin's starting to look like Godwin again. My wide receiver 17 in a nice matchup with New Orleans.
Jay, what are you doing with Stefan Diggs today?
I'm starting him, and I'm not that worried about it, to be honest. You mentioned, Matthew, the target share, which has been really healthy, around 30%. He's not playing as many snaps. I don't understand that. They take him off the field on some 3rd downs.
Or he takes himself off sometimes.
Which is just weird. I think there must be something going on there. But at the same time, this is a matchup where I think they will need to throw. I think Diggs will finally get right.
Here's a question for you. I mentioned this before, but I'm just curious. Like, literally, my friend who called me during the commercial break, he's in a big money league. He's sweating it. Rashee Rice versus Stefan Diggs. What would you say?
Rashee Rice.
Where would you go?
I'm going Rice.
Damn it. It's like
That's because I'm actually starting Rice today in multiple spots.
So I was thinking about this. As productive as
Stupid Dev has Rashee Rice on his team as well.
there's that
so
too.
You know he's going to go off.
But I'm glad you. Okay, because it's philosophical in nature.
Yeah.
When you talked about the target share being there, it's not like he's hurt. It's not like he's not playing a lot. Like, just because he hasn't been productive doesn't mean he can't or won't be.
Correct.
He's still Stefan Diggs. And I hate to say he's due, but when you're getting 30% of the targets still, it's coming. And I would just hate to be in a championship and Stefan Diggs is sitting on my bench. I'm like, damn it. I didn't draft Stefan Diggs in the first 2 to 3 rounds to not play him in the championship.
I just think this is a fascinating kind of philosophical discussion real
Thank
quickly.
you.
Because it is. I'm with you because some of it's mental. But I'll give you an example. I'll play the opposite side of that.
All right.
Right? Because that's the argument. He's Stefan Diggs. Rashee Rice is a rookie and Mahomes.
No,
and
that's not disrespect to Rashee Rice. It's just his Diggs.
I'm just saying, but it's Rashee. My guy, it's between Rice and Diggs. And I suggested Rice as well. Just, I mean, my rankings have, I have Rice at 6 and whatever. We talked about Rice earlier.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. So I benched Joe Flacco on Thursday night, right? In the league that I'm playing against, Deb, my 2 quarterbacks that have been riding for a while have been Hurts and Flacco.
And even though he went off, that was the right decision.
It was on some level, except, I mean, my thought was, again, Flacco had been very volume based, and it was, they were the number 1 scoring defense against quarterbacks this entire year.
Yep.
Flacco was without Amari Cooper.
Yep.
It was a very low total game, and so if you look at Flacco's production prior to that game, it had all been very volume based. He's throwing it 40 times a game because they get into these shootouts. So I didn't expect the volume to be there. He's very tough matchup, and he's losing his number 1 wide receiver. Mm-hmm. But in retrospect, I'm also like, man, like whatever. The guy's been the hottest quarterback in fantasy for a month, and I just benched him. I got cute. Because I was just like, Jacoby Brissett should have to throw a lot against San Francisco or whatever. I feel like if you go with Diggs over, right, it is one of those things. It's like if Diggs goes off on your bench, it's like, oh, he's Stefan Diggs. But if he bombs, you're like,
I should have seen this coming.
He's been outside the top 50 of wide receivers for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it's not like 1 or 2 bad games. It's been a month and a half, and Rashee Rice.
Can your guy start
has been-
both? Is there another option they could bench?
No, Puka's his other guy.
Rashee Rice has 9+ targets from Patrick Mahomes each of the past 5 games. If Rashee Rice, if he had the exact same production, same quarterback, everything, if his name was Cris Olave, then you would be starting Rashee Rice over Diggs, and it's not even close. It's just people still haven't clicked in that Rashee
No,
Rice
and
is
it's
really
really not
starting
that.
him,
It's
and
just
his name
that.
is Rashee Rice.
No, it's not that. The production speaks for itself. He's no longer a rookie. It's week 17. It's really just the idea of Stefan Diggs.
Yeah. It's just an idea at this point, though, because he
That's
hasn't
fair.
done it in so
That's
long.
fair.
Yeah.
'Cause, we have not seen it. There's the point. Way to drop the mic on Mike.
There you
Way to go. So Rashee Rice it is.
Yeah.
Especially because Stupid Dev has
Stupid
it.
Dev. He's gonna go off.
Where were
Stupid
we?
Dev.
Lawrence. Brandon Ayuk. We don't have this issue, Brandon Ayuk. We're starting Brandon Ayuk.
Oh.
Nah,
Especially against the
we're
Commanders.
definitely starting IU. It's Washington. It's Washington Commanders. But on a broader note, IU 65 catches, 1,200 yards, and 6 TDs this season. That's a Pro Bowl season, and he's not even thought of wasn't as the best receiver on the team. But obviously we feeling great about IU versus the Commanders.
All right, let's speed this up and do this full screen style.
Yeah.
Shall we? Matthew, JSN.
My wide receiver 27, he's had at least 12 fantasy points in 3 of the past 4 games. Steelers allow the 4th most yards to the slot. JSN should be a top 30 play today.
Lawrence T. Higgins.
I believe he'd be good to start whether Jamar Chase plays or not. 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games and has finished as a top 10 receiver in 2 straight weeks.
And J. Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I understand the concerns around Calvin Ridley. He's still had 34 targets the past 3 weeks. I didn't think CJ Beathard was that bad when he came in against the Bengals. So I think that Calvin Ridley is still viable, if not inspiring.
All right, Pop Douglas, Matthew.
Yeah, we've talked about him a few times during the show. Since week 8, he's got a 23% target share with at least 5 receptions in every game but 1 over that stretch. But Bills also struggle against the slot. They allow the 4th highest catch rate to the slot where Douglas lines up quite a bit. Again, no Hunter Henry in this game either.
Rashid Shaheed, Jay.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed is set at 36.5 receiving yards on DraftKings. To me, that is way too low. This Bucs team they've really struggled in pass D. They give up explosive plays. Also, Shaquille Barrett, he's their only pass rusher, and he's out. So now their number 1 pass rusher is Yaya Diaby, who I thought was a defensive midfielder for Real Madrid, but now he's their significant pass rusher, and I think they're going to struggle. And Rashid Shaheed gets open for 1 deep.
Hey, Lawrence, Jerry Jeudy catching passes from Jared Stidham.
Even without Corliss Sutton in the lineup, I'm still nervous about Jeudy in going against the Chargers, who allow the 3rd most fantasy points to receivers. He's got 1 game over 75 yards this season, 1 touchdown this season, and no game with 7 or more targets. And you mentioned it, Michael, Jared Stidham under center today.
All right, tight ends, Trey McBride, Matthew.
Yeah, Trey McBride. By the way, it's now Rashid Shaheed now down to 36.5. I just bet that. I'm betting. I'm right now betting it. I love
Way to
that.
go.
I
Let's
totally agree with Jay's bet.
Let's go, Shaheed.
Trey McBride is my tight end 3 as well. Since taking over the starter, the 7th highest target share among all players. Not tight ends. Every player in the NFL, only 6 of them have a higher target share than Trey McBride since he became the starter. Tight ends that have seen at least 6 targets against the Eagles, averaging over 16 fantasy points per game. 5 of the 6 of them have scored as well. Death taxes start your tight ends against the Eagles.
Lawrence, Isaiah Likely.
Matthew has him here at tight end 5, and that's exactly what he's been on a points per game basis in fantasy since taking over from Mark Andrews in week 12. He's been 2nd on the team in targets, also in that same span. Miami does allow the 8th fewest points to tight ends, but with the Ravens offense, it is made to get the ball to the tight end, so we like Lee.
Jay Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz, I think, is in line for a pretty good day. He had 11 targets last week. We just haven't seen much of this offense without Tank Dell with CJ Stroud, and so I think that Schultz, along with Noah Brown and Nico Collins, are going to get plenty of work.
Matthew, you already told us how much you like Gerald Everett with all the other absences from the Chargers.
1,000%. He's my tight end 12. 23% target share over the last 3 games with at least 5 receptions in each of those games. No Keenan Allen or Josh Palmer. No team has allowed more fantasy points to tight ends this season than Gerald Everett. The stick man should be looking for him early in offense against Denver.
Jay, Pat Freiermuth.
So I built my show league fantasy team around Pat Fryermuth.
Smart.
Didn't work out. He has 243 yards on the season. 4 targets for 16 yards last week with a couple of weeks ago. So I don't think that Pat Fryermuth should be started in many leagues today.
All right, start your new year off right with an NFC North showdown. Packers, Vikings, both looking to keep their playoff hopes alive. Sunday, 7 Eastern on NBC and Peacock, also starring Matthew Berry. For my New Year's resolution, I just want to practice something that I'm really not particularly good at in all aspects of my life, and that's patience. Everybody's ever played fantasy football with me. Matthew Berry can attest. I lap the field in the transaction department. It's actually kind of like a sickness. It's cost me a lot of time, a lot of peace of mind. And the worst part is when every player that does anything at one point was on your roster, if I'd have just kept him. And I got a lot of stories like that I won't waste your time with. But really going into next year, I want to draft my team. I want to trust my research. I want to trust the Rotoworld fantasy guide that I purchased. And I'm just going to stick with my team. And I'm not going to go trading away everybody and cutting everybody and trying to get cute. Next thing you know, I'm looking back with regret. I don't want to live with regret in 2024. I just want to be happy with my decision making. I'm going to make the decision to go to break right now. Beer goggles are coming up next. Happy New Year from DJ Moore. Ready to take on the Falcons. Ready to deliver you a fantasy championship or a third place finish and get your money back, as the case may be. Or maybe just pride. Maybe in a toilet bowl. Are you anybody in leagues like dynasty leagues where like you got the toilet bowl to get extra lottery balls?
Oh, you bet.
I love that kind of stuff. There's always something to play for. All right, it's time to play beer goggles. Y'all know what it is. Scale of 1 to 5 beers.
Yeah.
How many does it take for these guys to feel good about these starts? Matthew, start you off with George Pickens.
I need 3 beers. I want 3 beers. Last 10 games, Seahawks allow the 5th fewest yards per game on deep passes, which is obviously a lot of Pickens' game. 34% of his total fantasy points this year have come on his 5 touchdowns. Do you think he gets into the end zone? How lucky do you feel since week 8? He has only 1 game with more than 4 receptions. So it's just, I'd want 3 beers here. I'm nervous about Pickens on the road. I'm nervous about Mason Rudolph. That's such a tough place to play at Seattle. This is an important game for the Seahawks. 3 beers for Pickens, who's my wide receiver 30 today.
Jay, Tyler Lockett.
2 beers for Tyler Lockett. Not a ton of ceiling in Tyler Lockett's game these days, but there is a lot of floor. And this Pittsburgh team is really banged up on defense. No safeties left, as we mentioned. So I think Lockett is a pretty safe play.
We spared you when you gave Lawrence Najee Harris.
Najee.
You know, usually it's 3 beers for me with Najee, but I'm going to say just 1 beer for me. He's coming off a 19-carry, 78-yard, 1 TD performance. Now goes against the Seahawks, who allow the 6th most fantasy points to running backs. We saw Derrick Henry have 88 yards and a touchdown last week versus them as well. So just give me 1 beer for Najee.
All right, Titans, Texans, Matthew, Derrick Henry. How many beers? This is the first time Derrick Henry ever been on this list?
It might have
Sad.
been. 2 beers. 2 beers again. He's on Stupid Dev's team. I think he's going to have a monster game. He's had 5 straight games with at least 18 or more touches, 7 rushing touchdowns in his past 5 games. Now, playing Houston as well, when he played them earlier this year in Week 15, he had just 9 yards on 15 carries, had that brutal game as well. He's played under 50% of the snaps in 3 of the last 4. They're underdogs in this game, but I don't know. He's Derrick Henry. He's got always a pretty good shot at getting into the end zone. It's on Stupid Dev's team. 2 beers. 2 beers. He's my running back 22. High-end flex, low-end RB2 this week.
Jay, DeAndre Hopkins, who was getting tightened up in the locker room during the interview while he was playing video games, so seemed to be in good spirits.
Indeed. Yeah,
The
no, 2
haircut.
beers.
Tighten up meaning the haircut. That's what it didn't
Thanks.
fade.
It's been a long time since I've had a haircut. I wouldn't know.
Tighten up, yeah. 2 beers for DeAndre Hopkins. It's been an inconsistent season for D-Hop, but he's had much more success with Will Levis than with Ryan Tannehill. I think against the Houston defense that just got eviscerated by Joe Flacco, I think that he will have some success.
What about Devin Singletary, Lawrence?
You know, only 2 beers for me. Only 12 touches for 63 yards last week, but they were getting blown out by the Browns, so there was no need for them to keep trying to run the ball. Week 15, it shifted back to him being the lead back, 30 touches, 170 yards. So now you got C.J. Stroud back. The offense is going to be on all cylinders again.
All right, Chargers, Broncos, Matthew, Austin Eckler. Look, this is the times are changing. We got Derrick Henry, we got Austin Eckler, and beer goggles, right?
I'm going to say 1 beer. Just 1 beer for Austin Eckler, proud FantasyLife.com investor. Look, when you think about Week 14, he played Denver the first time this year. He had 21 fantasy points. He's had at least 85 yards from scrimmage in 2 of the past 3 with almost a 20% target share as well. Over the last 4 weeks, Broncos allow the 4th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. I'm sorry, the 8th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. And by the way, moving from Russell Wilson to Jarrett Stidham is Sean Payton waving the white flag. They're not making the playoffs, and that locker room knows it.
Yep.
Hard to see them coming out all fired up in this one, the Broncos.
Agreed.
All right.
Yeah.
Jay, Quentin Johnston.
So I understand that the Chargers don't have any other receivers at the moment. I just don't think Quentin Johnston's very good. And I don't trust this passing offense. I don't trust the stick man to a great deal. So 4 beers for me on Quentin Johnston.
Lawrence, how many need to start up Jerry Jeudy?
4 beers, and I could just echo what Jay just said about Quentin Johnston and use it for Jerry Jeudy. Even though Cortland Sutton's not there, he still hasn't done anything this season with his 1 touchdown. Jarrett Stidham coming into the fold, like you said, Matthew. They're waving the white flag. You would think Jerry Jeudy would benefit from this, but I just don't think the team morale as a whole it ain't hitting on anything. 4 beers.
All right, and Packers, Vikings, Sunday Night Football, Matthew, George's guy, Ty Chandler.
Yeah, look, George, it was really weird. You'd watch golf in August. You know what I mean? You'd watch golf in August, and and you'd be like, it'd be like you'd hear stuff like Bryson is really, really struggling with his putting, but I like Ty Chandler to be the best back out of the Minnesota Vikings. You'd be like, what is going on here? But absolutely, George Savaricas should
Good
have
for you, Matthew.
listened.
You were plus 120 to pull a golfer's name out of your hat there, and you got to Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah,
Well played.
took me a second. But Tyson Chandler has had 75% of his team's running back touches over the last 2 weeks. Now, Madison's been in and out of the lineup, but still, Green Bay's a bottom 5 run defense over the last month. And prior to Week 16, they'd allowed 100 yards rushing to running backs in 4 straight games. Ty Chandler, he's my running back 19. Just 2 beers. I think he has a nice game tonight.
Jay, my son Mason was wondering whether to start Noah Brown or KJ Osborne. How many beers for KJ Osborne?
Did he not tweet the show, or is he only on TikTok?
He's not on Twitter, but
Okay.
he's on Instagram, though. Yeah.
You know what? You're raising him right.
Yeah. Well,
I'm about to say,
Well,
that's
try.
what you want.
I'm trying.
Mason should start Noah Brown, I believe, and then I would need 4 beers for KJ Osborne with the news that Jordan Addison is trending towards playing Probably 4 beers and some absinthe. So I don't want any part of KJ Osborne.
All right. And Lawrence, Jaden Reed.
Just give me 2 beers for Jaden Reed. Watson and Wicks both looking iffy to play there. Minnesota allows the 12th most fantasy points to receivers. St. Brown has went off against them recently. T. Higgins and DJ Moore went 400 yards. And you know they use Jaden Reed in a multitude of ways there. Just 2 beers for Jaden Reed.
You know what I missed the most?
I like Jaden Reed tonight, but Minnesota struggles against the slot.
Yes, sir.
You know what I missed the most the last couple of weeks? Pickup lines.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Matthew's had 8 beers.
Oh,
feeling good.
feeling good.
Jay is lit.
Yes.
Jay has had 12 beers.
Yes.
I don't know what's going to come out of Jay's
Yeah,
mouth.
send some absinthe.
Lawrence has had 9.
Yeah. Oh, the kind of stuff that happened just before our night in Buffalo.
Yes.
All right. Lawrence, you're up.
All right, this isn't, this one isn't as long as my usual bets. It's only plus 195, but it's a really good bet when we're talking about Kyron Williams, who's in no timeshare. This is a true workhorse right here at alternate 120-plus rushing yards here against these Giants. Now, it's high, but his past 5 games, he's averaging 22 carries and right at 120 yards. That's the average. 1 game under 21 carries and 114 rushing yards in that same span. So, dude is just balling. New York Giants, 4th worst rushing defense, albeit they're playing better. But, Gainwell and Swift just went for 133 for them. So, there you have it, my man, Kyron Williams.
All right.
Okay, so Matthew, it's championship week. This is all about the big names. So what better time to talk about DJ Chark Jr. over 23.5 receiving yards? DJ Chark. Last week, he had 8 targets and went 6 for 98. I'm throwing out the week against Atlanta because of the rain. Strange game. Before that, 26, 56, 34 yards. He played over 70% of the snaps last week. He's effectively the wide receiver 2 in this offense now. How is he 23.5 receiving yards against a bad pass defense with Bryce Young seemingly to have figured some things out? So DJ Chark, he goes for 24 yards. That's all you need, 24 yards from DJ Chark.
So 24 yards for Kyron Williams. Oh, sorry, what was the Kyron Williams?
120 rushing yards at plus 195.
God, you love that plus. Love the plus money.
It's for example, Saquon at 120 rush yards is plus 650.
Right. That's tough. I do think Kyron has a monster game. I like both
you
bets.
Would think I like
both. I like both bets, but I'm going to take the 24 yards there.
DJ
I mean, one catch.
Yes.
No, like if it was just Kyron Williams over, it's easy. But the plus money makes it. There's a reason it's a plus money.
Yeah.
I actually think it hits, but I'm going to go with Jay. I'm going to go home with Jay. But keep your phone on.
But listen.
I might roll through later.
Oh, there you go.
No, you like that.
Oh, yeah?
That single cam right there. Give us your New Year's resolution.
It's very simple. I will never, ever draft a player that is coached by Arthur Smith. Never.
Wow,
I don't
shocker.
care if Arthur Smith becomes an offensive coordinator for the Ottawa Senators. I will never play. I will not
They don't
draft.
have them in hockey.
I will not draft a defenseman from that team or a forward, whatever it is they do in hockey. I don't care. If Arthur Smith is coaching in a professional sport, I will never draft a player. The usage is too insane. It makes no sense. It's not rational. And don't forget, he was fined by the league for cheating. Remember that Bijan migraine game that he didn't report? The league fined him and the Falcons. They fined him for cheating. So yes, I will never, ever, 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 ever draft a player that has Arthur Smith as his coach. That's my New Year's resolution for this year and every year I'm alive on this earth.
Arthur Smith could be the defensive coordinator, and you
I don't
still
care.
wouldn't
I'm
take an
getting
offensive
away with
player.
defense. Absolutely not. He could
Just on
donate a
staff.
kidney to me, and I still would not draft one of his players. We'll be back.
So this is the last call.
Yeah.
It would take a massive self-destruction for Matthew to lose that.
It
He's
would.
prone to that, though.
Seemingly
He's not afraid of a little
insurmountable
self-destruction.
lead, right?
Yeah,
So-
but you never know.
We'll recognize you officially next week, but
Thank
you
you.
gotta bring it home.
Yeah.
So you could win the Show League Championship and bar trivia. It's starting to feel like the
Amazing.
fix
That
is
would be
in.
amazing.
Are you just that good, or is it fix in? Is
Fix
this
is
like
in.
the fix is in? Right?
Stop it. I'm
I
not
just
good.
need to make
I'm
sure
not
that
good.
I answer last on every question.
Would you like to go
fine.
last on everyone?
Yeah, I mean, what?
I got you.
I got nothing.
Matthew, you're first on everyone. You're in first place. You're
That's
first
fine.
on everyone. All right. Who
Trying to
scored
decide
more
my
fantasy
defenses
points?
Here. Go ahead.
Who scored more fantasy points, Stefan Diggs or James Cook?
Cook.
Diggs.
Diggs.
Who had more receiving yards, Kyle Pitts or Drake London?
Kyle Pitts.
Drake London.
Come on, guys. Drake London.
Who had more receptions, Devontae Adams or Michael Pittman, Matthew?
Pittman.
Adams.
Adams. This guy.
Who scored more? Can we just skip to the end? I think I never okay. Who scored more fantasy points, Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey?
Ooh, Brock Purdy.
Christian McCaffrey.
He ain't gonna let me get second. Give me CMC.
Who had more total yards, Saquon Barkley or Kyren Williams?
Kyron Williams.
Kyron Williams.
Saquon.
All right, I was waiting for you. Who had more receiving yards, Devontae Smith or Trey McBride?
Trey McBride.
Devontae Smith.
Trey McBride.
Oh, okay. Who scored more fantasy points, Mike Evans or Chris Olave?
Evans.
Olave.
Lave.
All right. Who had more rushing yards, Travis Etienne or Chuba Hubbard?
ETN.
Chuba.
Oh, God. Chuba Hubbard.
All right. Who scored more fantasy points, Lamar Jackson or Tyreek Hill?
Lamar Jackson.
Tyreek.
Lamar.
Yeah, you couldn't go against. You got to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Who had more receiving yards, DeAndre Hopkins or Nico Collins?
Nico Collins.
DeAndre Hopkins.
DeAndre.
Who had more receptions, Deontay Johnson or Tyler Lockett?
Lockett.
Deontay.
Lockett.
Who had more passing yards, the Stickman or Jarrett Stidham?
I'm going to say Stidham.
Stick.
You say?
He said Stidham.
Easton Stick.
All right. Who had more receiving yards, T. Higgins or Rashee Rice? Matthew?
I will say Rashee Rice.
That's an easy one. T. Higgins.
That's an easy one.
Rashee Rice.
Jerry Rice all show. Now it's an
Rashee
easy
Rice.
one.
He said
for
Rasheed
me.
Rice, so it's an easy one.
Okay, Rashee Rice for you. And lastly, who scored more fantasy points, Justin Jefferson or Jordan Love on Sunday Night
Justin
Football?
Jefferson.
Jordan Love.
You don't really believe that. Jordan Love.
Good luck, fellas. I'd love to see y'all close this gap.
Playing
and
for
make
the
it
win.
interesting. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. Peace, as Matthew sets his lineup for his
Yeah,
championship.
I'm saying I just put it in. Down with stupid Deb. That's our lineup right there. Kamara. He's got Kelsey, too. Look, he's got Kelsey. Peace out. Praise for me, please. Prayers for me.
Praise and prayers.
Prayers,
all of it.
praise.
All of it. Continue.
Whatever.
Yeah.